Yes.
Suzette from the University of Alberta's occupational therapy said she could do a presentation on,
So, excellent. Thank you. Good morning. Welcome back to the Learning Symposium on Employment and Technology in the world of persons with disabilities. We had a great day yesterday for those of you who are joining us today, and appreciate the comments that have come in from the webcast, so we know you're out there. Just for those who've joined us today, we also in the room, although you can't see them, are between 2,000 and 3,000 people on the webcast. One group as far away as Argentina. And so we have a very rich crowd of people who are engaging with the speakers and the trade show in this symposium. I don't know if it's clear for all of you in the room, but the trade show booths have all had specific interviews and videos made of them, and so those are playing in the breaks and over lunch for people on the webcast, so they can get at least a kind of a touch in to the kinds of things that we've brought for your for you to kind of play with and get a sense maybe of some different things than you've used before in technologies to help in your work. We've gotten many comments from people that they were appreciating the discussions and taking things away, that they were finding things for which they could learn and apply, which is clearly the purpose that we had in mind when we put this symposium together. So we really, really appreciate that there's different things that have appealed to different people, but that overall there seems to be some resonance. We'll have a little session later on this morning where you'll have a chance to talk just a bit of reflection and looking back and having a chance to kind of synthesize in your mind what you've learned and what you might take away, and hear from your neighbors on what they've done. But to start this morning and to welcome you back, I'd like to welcome Donna Ludvigsen to the stage. Donna is the Assistant Deputy Minister of Employment and Financial Supports. Donna and I have a long and rich history together, and so I've decided not to try and tell any of those stories, but rather just to welcome her. Please help me welcome Donna to the stage.
Good morning. I'm seeing lots of familiar faces in the crowd. I'm just wanting to do a sound check. Is that turning out okay? Okay. As many of the people who live in Edmonton know, we typically had two seasons. We had winter and then we had construction, road construction. Well, I think what we decided to do is have a single season, and it's road construction. I could not believe how many detours and workarounds I needed to do this morning in order to get here. So, and then unfortunately that cut my time short. I had hoped to be able to meet a few people in the room and find out how yesterday went. But the conversations that I did have tells me that there was a ton of really good information and lots of excitement generated from that. And as Brenda Lee whispered to me, the number of people who have joined us in by webcast is absolutely phenomenal. And technology is giving us the ability to disseminate information far more broadly than we could even 3 or 4 years ago. So how exciting to be here today, and welcome back to all the folks who've returned for the second day. And hello to many of my staff that I noticed coming and going here in the room. I think one of the things that's really important is to make everyone aware that this is a collaborative effort between the two divisions, between the disability supports and between employment and financial supports. We have shared a common goal, and if those people who know me from my past, I've come from the world of disabilities all of my career with a very brief U-turn into the criminal justice system for youth. It took me a year to figure out I didn't want to be there. That didn't feel like home at all. And I think One of the pieces that's really important for me is we're focusing in on the gifts, the talents, and the abilities of all individuals and identifying those opportunities that will match those unique talents and abilities with employment opportunities in the community. We need to have uniquely tailored approaches for each one of the populations that we're going to be making greater efforts to include into the employment market. The Alberta Work Centres, which is that service to all Albertans and other individuals who are seeking employment opportunities. We had about 2 million visits to Alberta Work Centres last year. And what's really important for you to be aware of is that that doesn't reflect our caseload for people who are on income support. I think that there's been often an assumption that you come to an Alberta Work Centre because you're looking for financial supports. Out of those 2 million visitors, we only have about 35,000 Albertan households who are receiving some kind of financial support and who are also being engaged in the services there through the Alberta Work Centres. We have about 47,000 clients who are on AISH, the Assured Income for the Severely Disabled. And one of the pieces that's really important for you to be aware of those 47,000 individuals or households, about 17% of them have some kind of reported earned income. So they are out in the workforce and they are earning a wage. Inside the division, we provide something that's called DRES. It's the Disability-Related Employment Supports, and those are individualized supports and services for persons with disability that enable them to engage in the workforce. We have 3 basic areas where we provide those services. One is in job search. Another one is in the workplace supports, which includes on-the-job supports, worksite modifications, and vehicle modifications to enable people to acquire the transportation that they need, and then educational supports. So DRES funding in Alberta is administered by 2 different ministries, Employment and Advanced Education. Nope, that's not their current title. We keep changing things around. Enterprise and Advanced Education has funding for the post-secondary institutions, and our division provides DRES funding for those individuals who are attending programs that are operated by the private facilities as opposed to the publics. We have 6 regional divisions or regional areas in the province, and we have service providers who provide employment and training programs for Albertans. That includes individuals with disabilities. The reality is that we know individuals with disabilities are vastly underrepresented in the workforce, and that we need to be making better efforts and achieving greater success to attach people into the workforce. Brenda Lee and I are buddies. We're joined at the hip in a number of things, and one of the things that we're doing right now is called results-based budgeting. I have the distinct pleasure of being involved in 3 RBBs, as they're known in our lingo. One of them is it's called individual capacity to act, and it is looking at how we are enabling individuals to achieve their greatest potential through our training and educational programs. And that's one of the areas where the other division is actively involved with us on that particular RBB, as well as our partners in enterprise and advanced education, because we have a shared agenda about how to ensure that we are building and creating that workforce for tomorrow, but we're also engaging and making sure that across our programs we've got the capacity to bring people along regardless of their physical location, their current skill level, and match them into their desires and aspirations. So one of the things that's really important is for us to take a look through that RBB process and see how we can leverage the new opportunities to engage people. So I wish you well on your journey over the next day. I understand that you're going to be using technology to talk to the person about technology, and I hope you have a really good learning session. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Donna. Gisela Kwok, who's the Director of Provincial Disability Supports Initiatives in the Disability Services Division, will introduce our guest speaker from Washington. But while she's coming up, can we wave to the people on the webcast and just welcome them into the room? And so that you can imagine another kind of couple of thousand people virtually in this setting. Gisela.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. So it is my utmost pleasure to introduce Cecily Carlson, who's the Executive Director of the Washington Initiative for Supported Employment, WISE for short. So Cecily brings 18 years of experience in training and development to her position, including board development, community development, leadership development, strategic planning development, and nonprofit management. She designs, manages local, statewide, and national projects and provides technical assistance to urban and rural communities, families, providers, and families on system design and employment issues. Cecily holds certification as an executive coach at the Judson Institute and a somatic executive and leadership coach by the Straussy Institute. She's a board member for National APSI. She's a treasurer and current past president of Partnership 2020. In addition, Cecily holds a master's degree in social psychology, exercise, and movement science from the University of Oregon. Please help me in welcoming Cecily Carlson.
Well, good morning. Thank you for the great introduction. I'm hoping that everyone can hear me okay. I'm coming to you right now from Bellingham, Washington, actually. So I'm fairly close to BC, about 45 minutes south of the border. I'm looking forward to spending this next hour and a half or so with all of you, and I only wish that I could be there in person, but with technology, and which will be part of my presentation today, I'm fortunate that I still get to be with you today. So thank you to all of you for hosting me as well. I think the way we're going to set this up this morning, since there are so many moving parts and pieces to the presentation with locations and technology, is that I'm going to go through my presentation, and then we'll close and then open it up for questions and answers so that we can do some exchange together. So if you will, just hold your questions and take notes, and I'll finish with enough time for us to go ahead and have a dialogue together. And be patient with me too as I move through my presentation here. I'm going to try and take you between still screens and some pieces on the internet as well. So the first thing I did want to give you just a little bit of backdrop in terms of my organization. The Washington Initiative for Supported Employment is a nonprofit entity in the state of Washington, and currently we are providing training and technical assistance for both the state of Washington and the state of Oregon. We've recently, in the last 3 years of the Employment First movement in the states, been asked to help the state of Oregon start moving forward with their employment initiatives. So a lot of what I say today will be also, it's going to be fairly Washington state specific, but it has been informed now over the last couple of years with work in a state that's starting at a fairly beginning launching point for entering into a full-blown employment service delivery system. So some of that will come out in my presentation today. But what I want you to know about our organization is we're very small. We have 12 consultants who work for us. And our responsibility is really threefold. One, we are in charge of being a household for innovative and creative pilot projects or new emerging best practices. The second piece is that we are a entity that produces training events, large-scale conferences, web training, what I like to call butts in the seats kinds of training, where everyone's in there going to sessions at day-long events or specialty training. So we do a range of training for employment specialists as well as families and self-advocates and government entities. And then the third piece that we do is technical assistance, and that can range from working inside the government, excuse me, at the state level, all the way down to working in a family's home on a specific accommodation or assistive technology need that an individual might have. So we span quite a range as a small group. And we've been around for almost 30 years now in the state of Washington. So I'm going to take you through kind of the feel and the thoughts of what's going on down south from you. I am lucky that I get to work every single day on nothing but employment. So where I come from, I have heard all sorts of different things about employment. I've seen some amazing successes, and I've been in so many conversations about the struggle to get more individuals into jobs of their choice and at living wages. And when I was listening to the opening today, I was trying to listen to some of the data that was presented, which it sounds, excuse me, sounds very similar to what the national data is in the United States. We have about a 20% excuse me, placement rate across the United States. The state of Washington right now, we have about a 65% placement rate, and that actually hasn't moved up or down very much in the last 5 years, so we actually find ourselves at quite a plateau right now. And I put this up here to start with because I wanted to get some of these points out of the way in the beginning of the presentation. Excuse me, I've got a spring cough, so I'll try and manage this as best I can. But really the key things I want to acknowledge and just connect with you on is probably the number one bullet I have up, which is employment is hard. When you look at all of the services and supports that are provided across their service domain, employment really is the most technically complex because you're dealing with a lot of variables that are out of your control when you're working in the employment field. And so I like to just say that up front because it's quite a coalition of people that are forming around working on employment, and it's going to take everybody really to do it. We have faced a pretty significant downturn in our economy, but we haven't seen employment plummet too bad in the disability community in Washington State during that time. And what we're doing right now is trying to take an inventory about why we didn't fall too hard during the employment downturn in the recession in the United States. And there's also just a notion that when you're working on behalf of an individual that besides all the things that go into getting someone a job, there's also a variety of things going on in someone's life. And so sometimes employment gets prioritized lower than some of the emergent living needs that someone might have. So this is just a little flavor for you all to see about what our conversation sounds like pretty much across the United States right now, and including in my home state of Washington. So talking about employment first, we're doing a lot of work in Washington to try and get to the next 35% of the folks that are unemployed. And there's a range of needs and a range of complexities in that group that we're tackling in a variety of forms and fashions. And so what I thought I'd do is kind of frame the conversation for you to see how we organize ourselves right now. And these 5 areas are really what I like to keep in mind when I'm working with folks around either a large-scale government effort to project develop, or whether we're looking inside an organization or a family and saying, here's the stages, you're all going to go through these sorts of areas and have different elements of these areas in play. So we're going to talk a little bit about culture. I'm going to talk to you some about organizing for action, or like I like to say, getting together and doing something together. Leadership, I'll touch on that, and that it's a huge piece of employment being successful for all individuals. I'll give you some snippets on the education and implementation pieces that my organization helps in partnership with a variety of other organizations in Washington, both Washington and Oregon. So that's our basic framework. So this is, I like to start with the culture because it's kind of the fun part, and it's one of my favorite parts. I talk about culture a lot because it's the way of being. When you go into working on employment, there's just a style and an attitude and an essence to what goes on in our area that I think, at least for me in the last 20 years, I can now describe it a little bit more clearly. But I was lucky coming into employment in Washington in that a lot of these core elements of the culture were in play, and they're still in play today. And so we like to try and share these and pass these on with folks when we get together with new partners. And I lead off with the bold goals, attract bold people, because one of the first things we did in Washington was we had about a 20% employment rate in the 80s. May have been even a little bit lower than that. Excuse me. And we set a goal for the first 5 years of our employment initiative to place 1,000 people into community-based jobs. And it was a super bold goal back in the 80s. And within that 5-year time period, we placed 1,500 people. And I like to think back on those early days and say, well, it did attract a lot of bold people because a lot of people that weren't willing to take on the goal and tackle it self-selected out, and it left a pretty strong core group of individuals that we're going to lead. And in my second point, they're the believers, and they're people that believed in everyone and still believe in everyone having the opportunity to work, even if we're not quite sure what employment would look like for someone. There's a real culture of belief, and we start with that every time we design something new. The other thing that's important is this piece about a role. And employment, I'd like to tell everyone, is that for someone to get a job, it takes everyone in their life believing in them and supporting them to pursue that dream or to pursue that first step out the door to a job. So from my organization, we like to say we'll train everyone and anyone who wants to know anything about employment, because even your neighbor could have a great role in helping out with employment. And that creates a certain amount of energy also. There's a lot of folks that when I think about, going back to this slide here, there's a lot of things that come up that are barriers in this conversation. And what we try and look for here is this piece about following the energy. If someone says, I want a job, that's where we're going to go. If someone says, I want to help someone get a job, we're going to apply information and training there. So it's just this little trick that we do about going where the energy is and going where the opportunity is. It's a really, really important way of being, an important cultural element that we believe in. The last two things are almost attitudinal to me, being resourceful and a voracious appetite for learning. You still have to be crafty in employment. There's never enough resource to go around to get everything that you need paid for, but there's always enough human resource around if you're really, really resourceful about finding it. And so we like to spend time acknowledging that and training to that as well. And the last thing is you can learn from everyone. So everyone that has an idea, I don't care what industry it's from, you have to be out there looking and seeing what's going on with the trends of today and tomorrow, and what the young people are doing as well, and what they're learning and paying attention to. So as I talk, I want you to know I'm holding this piece of culture for you and with you as we kind of move through the rest of the presentation. This piece goes back to what I just talked about around belief, and all means all is a little bit of a mantra, and that there's a lot of times as our state moved through employment activities that this is kind of our litmus test or a measurement sort of slide that we use about how we're doing on behalf of people. And there was, we can go back 50 years ago in Washington State, and there was a lot of talk around it being impossible for people to work. And so we go back in our history and we look at that, and then we see all of these different stages that we've been through. And what we always like to try and do is go in and say, where are we at right now in our public policy? Where are we at in our legislation? Where are we at in our technical, skilled employment staff? And where are we at in the general community? And what we're trying to do is we're really trying to drive hard to the notion of typical employment for everyone in our state. So this, to the same standard as everyone else, is a measurement for us to always keep in mind as we go forward. And I did, and I will be sharing with everyone this PowerPoint, and there is a reference here to this Alderbrook paper that was written in 2007 about Washington State that speaks to this notion of expected employment or the edge of is employment required for people. And right now what I'll tell you is that in Washington we're really working hard on expecting everyone to work and supporting everyone that can and wants to work to do so. So I think that we're really in this preferred to expected line item right now. That's where I see us at. It's a little tool for you. So the next piece I want to say around kind of organizing yourselves is this. There's two main questions. I won't go too far into these today, but I wanted to lay them out there for you because I think, I don't know how many hundreds of people are listening today, but these two questions, if you can answer one of them for yourself, that's going to be really, really key to you being part of the big equation for people to get jobs. You have to be able to speak from the heart about why employment is important for you, and why employment's important for anyone in your family or your friends or your community. And if you struggle with the why, I offer up the what's the value of employment as another way of looking at it, because this really is the core of the matter and the heart of the matter, because once you can answer this, you're going to have a style and a way of supporting the employment effort, whether you're directly related or whether you're indirectly related. So keep these in mind. These are some that I challenge you with going forward. For us in Washington, when we answer those questions, we really speak about the benefits of employment. So why do we value employment, or why do we focus on employment? We focus on it because we believe that out of employment, these are the benefits that someone receives. We know that people who are working are healthier and safer when they're going to work. We know that people have more power and they have more choice in their life. When the government provides services, the government only has a limited menu of services that they can afford to provide in any given year. But when an individual has their own resources and their own paycheck, they truly get to open up their own container of choices and make whatever choice that they want to have happen in their life. And oftentimes, I like to say it's a plus, because you can have your services and supports, and you can also decide where you're going to go on vacation, what you're going to buy that's important to you, and in what style you're going to buy it. Employment, we know really, really well, is an equalizer around status and respect. People are viewed as equals and contributors. Their value and respect with everyone in their life just increases. You see this, the other things, you can increase your relationships, you increase someone's competence, you increase their integration into their community. There's just all of these benefits happen when someone goes to work. So those are kind of our core value statements that we keep in mind in terms of organizing around the why we value employment so much. And if, I need to make the point even further, our leader that just recently retired in the state of Washington, she's been our director for the last 10 years and also working in our Division of Developmental Disabilities for the last 40 years. Her way of framing the benefits that I just went through here is just to say employment's the most direct and cost-effective way to accrue all of those benefits at once. So if you think about programs that you have going on, a lot of those benefits are woven into mission statements. They're in organizational plans, they're in person-centered plans, individual employment plans, and we know that employment's the one service we provide where we get to nail every single one of those benefits in one fell swoop for someone. So even though it's hard, as I started with, we like to say that let's try and put it out there first, because if we get the person employed, then they can organize their life around their job. So I'm going to take you through pretty quickly here the other kind of technical phases that we have organized around Employment First, and just give you a few highlights in those. We talk about culture, so you've got the essence of who people are. Once you kind of all get in alignment with that, then there's this thing that we believe in doing on a regular basis, which is organizing and gathering is another way of looking at it. But we do that both physically and we do that technically. So there are a lot of resources I'll show you later in the presentation where you can find information about stories, different data pieces, ways that we're messaging employment to make it mainstream and available for anyone in the community to find through a Google search, find on accident, find intentionally for their supports and ideas and strategies. So a good element of work is are your organizations, are your government entities, and are your families and self-advocates organizing to take action towards employment? And I think that's a really, really important exercise that needs to be happening on an ongoing basis. So I'll share some more about that as we go through. The other piece is, I can't stress this enough, leadership, leadership, leadership. From every single level. And I'm not saying it in the most formal orientation with, I have a job as an executive director there, I'm a formal leader of my organization. I mean that, and every single person that believes in employment can lead in the employment exercise, in my opinion. But there are some of the pieces that I've outlined here. I go back to setting clear and bold goals. I like to talk about people learning together. I like state leaders in our circumstance to put things in policy and legislation, because then we know that it's the rule and it's the guiding post for us in our state, and we have both of those right now. As of last year, Washington has both policy and legislation. So that's something for us to build towards typicalness again. And I think from a leadership perspective, it's really, really important that everybody hold each other accountable to keeping employment in the front of the line. We try and make things happen where everyone that's interested in employment gets a chance to be in front of the room and to talk about why it's important for them to answer that fundamental question, and to demonstrate their style and ability to lead the effort. A couple of years ago, when we were really launching hard the Employment First effort in the state of Oregon, we did some formal leadership things where we asked the state governmental officials to make sure that wherever we went to talk about employment, they came with us, and they got to stand in front of the room and speak their why about employment to everyone. And it was really symbolic in a lot of ways, because they had been seen so many times talking about crisis intervention or community stabilization or some of the just things around critical needs around health and safety. And they hadn't spent any time going out and talking about the critical need for employment for people. And that was really a subtle but powerful trick that was, implemented for folks. So I'm going to give you that just as a little story to say there's all sorts of ways to promote and demonstrate leadership in the employment movement. A couple of things, when you get the PowerPoint, you'll be able to reference the Washington policy and the state of Oregon's policy. You can also Google and find Washington state's legislation. It was buried a little deep for me to link it, so I'll just recommend that you guys go and take a look at that from a legislative standpoint. So next, this is where my organization kicks in a lot around education. So I've done a list of things, a list of links for you all to consider looking at, just to get you kind of connected to us. I'll show you a couple here just so that we can take this a little drive around. Hopefully my technological skills will come through here. I wanted to show you just a quick video, give myself a little break in talking here, and show you kind of one of the things we're trying to do is bring to life what the employers are saying. Hold on just a second here. And I decided I'd pick Costco because I knew that we had Costco in common. But I think also what I've shared with you so far is this notion of putting people in the front of the room, or in this instance, in front of the camera, and talking about the value of employment. So I'll let our friend from Costco here demonstrate what I'm talking about.
I've worked at, I've been able to work with agencies such as status in order to find employees that can fit niches in my business. All of the jobs that we create for the employees have to be positions that are equally as productive as a non-challenged employee. The trick is just to take elements from certain jobs, blend them into a new position that they're capable of doing and doing at a productive level. So I end up with another productive employee for my business. That's the payback. We find that these individuals are tremendously reliable. They're always available for work. Very rarely are they ever sick. They come in, they're very focused on their job at hand, and overall it's a win. First off, with a little bit of work, the hardest position is the first position because it's something new for you to try to do and create a new position for an employee that's challenged. But once you get over that hump, it gets easy after that. Once you get some people into your business and you see how much value they offer to the business and how much your employees become attached to those individuals, that you'll find yourself looking for other ways to add to that workforce within your business. As far as questions I've been asked from past business people, well, what if the person doesn't work out and we have to let them go? I mean, I'm worried about possibly getting a lawsuit. It's never happened. I've let numerous individuals go. You know, it's like if you don't take a chance, you don't give somebody a try, how will we ever know? So there's no reason to be fearful of that. You will end up with an excellent employee if you just give them a little bit of time, and we have great support from the agencies. So my challenge to all businesses is this: find a way to employ one or two individuals at your location. I guarantee you'll be happy you did. It'll be good for your organization, and it'll have the largest impact on reducing the roles of unemployed in that group of people.
So that's our friend Wayne from Costco. So I showed you this. Also, I wanted to just let you know that on excuse me, the WISE website, and like I said, you have all these links. We have this video area which will take you into hundreds of different videos, either from individuals telling their story, business owners telling their story, to government officials and community members across Washington State. So I encourage you to take a look at that as well. A couple other things that I think are important to have in your back pocket. One is the stories. And we have a pretty active wiki space going right now that has, it's organized by counties in Washington State. Excuse me. You can also search here in the search box by job type. So if you're someone that's looking for a particular type of job for someone, you could look here and see if there's stories about those types of jobs. It's a great tool. Excuse me. It's a great tool to use with businesses to share stories, or with individuals that are trying to refine what kinds of jobs that they might like to have. We get almost over 100 hits a day on the site from around the world, so a lot of people are using this tool right now, which is really exciting. The other piece I thought I would point out is that this piece around talking about employment, the questions I posed to you about why employment's important to you or to someone that you know, I gave a link here to something that was developed for the state of Oregon for people that were working in the system as either case managers or what they call personal agents in Oregon. for getting themselves organized about talking to the person about employment. And it goes through why we would be talking about employment now, and it gives some basic talking points. I thought this is a really good resource for just getting organized in languaging around employment. So through this page, you'll be able to link back to a lot of tools and things that you can self-organize around. In terms of moving from just kind of all the information, I did bookmark some sites for you and what we call ongoing implementation, or the way that we're always trying to A, get the word out, and B, share everything that we can that's going on around employment, both in our state as well as other states. You'll know that I've been going back to the GoWise website, and that's where we organize our materials. We also have a few ancillary websites that I thought would be important to share with you. And this Live Inclusive website is actually a site where we tell stories about people that have been living in our state institutions and are moving out into the community, and also how our community is organizing around supporting people to be independent and to live their own lives. Included in that is employment, but it's a more holistic look at what's going on across our state. The other piece that I thought would be really interesting for all of you to bookmark is this wiseemployers.com website. This is a site that is built and is intended for use with businesses, so job developers can use this as a tool. It has more business videos of people speaking about the benefits of hiring. And we also have on here a section called Ready to Hire, that if a business leader looked at this and they wanted more information, they could join in and someone would contact them and either connect them to another business or give them some initial consult and direction back to their local area, wherever they come from. So it is a way for them to connect and to find more information. There are quite a range, and we'll be adding more and more testimonials here in this section, so you can see different businesses that are joining in, and that rotates on a regular basis. Job developers are really hitting that site hard and using it as a preemptor to meetings with employers. They're sending that ahead of time, saying, here's some more information for you that I'll be coming in to talk to you about this. And they're getting some really good results with that. A couple other things in terms of implementation. There's more tools, and there's more things being created on a daily basis. I thought that I didn't get this bookmarked correctly, but for those of you that are heavy Facebook users, there is a Facebook page called the WISE Assistive and Information Technology page. And on that page, if you follow it, every day we're making recommendations on different apps that are useful in the field for folks around independence and employment. So I encourage you to follow us there. We're also involved in developing what we're calling our first employment app, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that. I thought I'd start with a little low-tech tool for you before I talked about apps. Because apps all generate, just so you know, from organizing ideas in some sort of chronological or graded sort of effort, almost like I was thinking back while we've been building this app about flashcards when I was a kid and how much I relied on those to learn. And it's almost the same sort of methodology when you're organizing individuals in terms of where they're at on their pathway to employment, or whether you're doing something really technologically savvy like trying to build an employment app. But this, what I have in front of you right now, is a tool that we created just recently for the state of Oregon, because people they were getting paralyzed around starting to help someone find a job. And what we said was, the notion is you're going to start with one person at a time, and you're going to figure out where they are on their pathway to employment. So some people are already working. Some people are just starting to talk about it, or maybe have said, no, I don't want to work. Other folks are saying, I'm thinking about it, I just can't see it, and some people are like, I'm ready to go, and we need to get in action. So we just organized those sorts of elements of being and the employment journey into this simple picture that we use with job developers and caseworkers to say, keep this in mind and try and figure out where everybody that you work with is on their own path to employment, and just be committed to helping them move forward in whatever direction that they want to. And plus, sometimes it's nice to just have a picture in front of you and to have some low-tech supports as well when you're trying to figure out all the complexities of what's going on. Another thing, so I talked a little bit about our app that's in design and development right now. It will be, if all goes well, and everything's going well right now, it will be launched in August in iTunes. And it's called Work Autonomy. And what we were doing with this tool was there are a lot of apps out on the market that do scheduling, queuing, alarms, videoing, pictures, all of those sorts of things. And what we found ourselves doing was having 5 or 6 apps at our disposal to try and help people set up their work supports. So what we've done is trying to take all of those elements and blend them into one app. With the notion that the app is something that the individual is going to use on their mobile piece of equipment that's going to help them organize themselves at work. It's going to help them keep track of what they're doing in a way that they could produce some feedback about their productivity so that they can share that with their supervisors or their coworkers. And it's also going to be a tool where people can share what's going on in their life. For those similar conversations that we all have in terms of connecting and sharing and becoming more integrated into our workplace. So there's several elements that are embedded in the app around tracking schedules, playing video messages, doing picture sequences, text information, and this piece around having the schedule tied to a production report so that you can keep track of your own progress. So we're piloting right now in 5 areas of Washington, 5 areas of Washington State, and people are giving us feedback and tweaking the app right now, and we'll really let you guys know when it does hit the market for everyone to take a look at. We're really excited about this first run of getting a product of this nature in people's hands. So the last piece that I wanted to spotlight, because I haven't told you anything about myself personally, but one of the things that I love on the planet, love nothing more than a good baseball game. So I'm a big baseball fan, and one of the things that I noticed in the employment field is that oftentimes we don't have very good stats in terms of tracking. We track on a global level, often on an unemployment rate, but that voracious appetite for learning I was talking about in the beginning can be fed with good data. And one of the things that I put Washington and Oregon up here because I wanted to juxtapose the two, not to be critical of Oregon, but to show that even across the United States, different states are doing tracking data very differently. And you would think that we would all be organized and tracking it the same because it's all about the same outcome, but indeed we're not, and it's something that we have to continue to be vigilant in designing our data systems. But these are linked sites that you can go into, and Washington's probably, and not to be too, I don't know, complimentary, I guess, of our government officials, but I do want to compliment them and say they've done a nice job putting data on the web for Washington, and we can track by agency or by community how things are going for services for people. And it looks like my link's broken, so I apologize for that. I'll fix that. But anyhow, there's sortable databases for all sorts of employment outcome data. So Washington's doing a really good job on that. I think it's a key element to helping people organize around what activities are effective, and just also in celebrating what people are doing in terms of their own accomplishments in getting and maintaining their jobs. So one of the things I've been taught over the years is that one good way to ensure that employment won't work is to keep data away from all of you that are working on employment, because you won't be able to measure progress. You won't be able to take a look at how you're actually doing, and you'll have to fall back on anecdote and story. And it will cause you to splinter and to develop factions and, to get into a downward spiral. And so, albeit I love data because I couldn't imagine watching a baseball game without data, if you think about that analogy, I think that it sets you free. So it's something that my apologies, sorry about this. It's something I encourage you to keep as a regular practice, is viewing the outcome data. Okay. So the last couple comments, and I'll open it up for questions. Back to, I started with culture, and I like to end with attitude. And I really believe in these two things. I believe that you must innovate. And so my mantra is innovate or evaporate. I think you have to do that. And I also think that what happens when you're trying to do something new and something bigger and bolder is that oftentimes we fall into a place of going, do I have permission to do it? Does it fit into the system? Am I going to get paid for it? Is it something that someone will approve of? Our systems are built to be followed within rule and policy. And one of the things I like to encourage employment specialists in particular, as well as families, is I like to say, proceed until apprehended. Go ahead and go for it. And then go back and say, well, here's what we thought, here's what we did, it worked. So there's that element of just being bold, getting out there, and giving it a good old-fashioned try. And then what we see out of that is new innovations emerging, new rules needing to be written, and new standards and norms evolving. It's something that's really, really powerful in terms of an attitude and a way of being, is to say, if someone wants a job, we're going to align our resources and our human capital around that person, and we're going to make it happen with them. So those are my two parting lines for you to consider, is to just go for it and do it in the spirit of innovation and generative well-being, and you'll have a great time with it, and you'll discover new things. And please make sure you share it with everybody, so that it's full disclosure and full exposure. I think would be really great. And so I'm gonna pause here and have us get organized around asking some questions and having some discussion. It's going to be a little trickier to do. We're going to have to be a little patient here in terms of how we move back and forth together online. But I believe that we're going to be able to field a variety of questions for folks.
Hi, Cecily. It's Sharon Matthias. I'm the moderator. I don't know if you can see me. Can you
No, I can't.
Can you hear me?
A little bit louder would be perfect.
Okay, we'll get the, can you turn up the volume for Cecily a little bit? Let me know when you can hear it okay. Is it still low?
That's pretty good. Let's try that.
What's that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, opportunity for questions. We have one in the room here to start, and then we'll move back and forth between the room and the webcast as we did yesterday. So, Crystal, there's a fellow at the front. Oh, Doda's here. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Kelly Nadeau with CNIB here in Alberta. We're looking at an employment rate of about 32% of blind and partially sighted individuals who do have training, skills, and abilities. I'd like to know if you look at defining the different disabilities within Washington State, talking about your employment rate of 65%. Can you give me an idea about people who are blind or partially sighted, please?
Can you say the last part again?
From your success, and you say it's stagnant at the moment, of employment for persons with disabilities in the state of Washington, what is your success with people who are blind or partially sighted?
I would say it's mixed. And I believe you asked about folks that are blind or partially sighted. That was the question, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. What I like to say is random acts of excellence. We don't have standard acts of excellence with that particular segment of the population. There's a variety of jobs that people have carved out for folks, but I would say that we're still not to a level of mastery that I would like to see with the group. And I think what you see in the group that we have that is unemployed at this point, or even underemployed, because we do have a fair number of folks that I would consider underemployed, is that we're able to get in the door to the employer, that we haven't figured out a way to either not be directly tethered, in a one-on-one support, or have entered the employer with the conditions wide open so that there was room for growth. So some of the time I think we've stopped ourselves with being happy that we got in the door, and instead of laying the conditions out for this is a starting place and we want more along the way, and that there's going to be a negotiation that happens every so often as the person builds competencies, and we also discover more about the job site that might be an opportunity for the individual. So I think we are, I would give us a C grade in that particular segment of the disability community right now.
Okay.
Cecily, can you go full screen for us, please?
Someone else in the room? Another question in the room? Okay.
Hello, I'm Mark from Selections. We're an employment support group. I'm wondering about our website and uploading some of your employers' comments and what they're saying about gathering other employers, educating, letting them know how it works for them, whether we could upload. That's my question.
I think I got it. Let me repeat it back and see if I'm on the same page. So you're looking at the information on the web that we have, and the possibility of sharing that with employers that you have or websites that you have. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's a wild opportunity to share. Our employers that are on the Wise Employers website have all agreed to be live there and or are willing to talk to other employers. So there aren't as many on Wise Employers because what we're doing, and over the next 12 months, we have just received a grant from our State Vocational Rehabilitation Office to bolster that site and get more employers up. But what we do is not just video them, we ask for their commitment as ambassadors of employment. So they are signed up to receive calls or connections or to help us if we need that. And I would love to share with any of you that opportunity. And certainly, at the very least, linking to that site or to a couple of our sites on your websites would be wonderful because it would get us all connected better.
Great. We'll take you up on that. I'm
Yeah,
sure
please do.
for several people. That would be great. Here's a question from the webcast, Cecily, from Nick 1, who's asking, when you say that you have a 65% placement rate, what percentage of those have developmental disabilities?
100%. I only work inside of the developmental disability domain in our state. There are other services and supports for the general disability community, but that data is specifically for intellectual and developmental disabilities in the state of Washington.
Thank you. And what are the age ranges? Here's one from CAFCL. I don't know if that's meant to be an acronym or so I'll just say the letters. What are the age ranges for those becoming employed? Is it mostly younger people, or have you had success with an older population as well?
So the overall age range is 21 to 62 in our data. We may have some folks in there, a very small group that are over the age of 62, as would trend with the general population, in that some folks want to work longer than others. Two ways I would answer this. One, in the last 10 years, we've done concentrated effort on what we call school-to-work projects, and I didn't go into those today. There's a lot of information I could provide you on school-to-work. But where we've had targeted projects for young people ages 18 to 21, our goal has been to leave the education system with a job, so that the last day of school looks just like your first day of graduation. So that's one mantra that we put in place. When we focus our effort that way for the students coming out versus not focusing, the focus groups have had about a 70% placement rate, either before they left school or within the first 6 months of leaving school. In areas of our state where we haven't been able to do that outreach, the percentage drops below 20% success. So the whole school-to-work movement that we're trying to implement across our state, our data's coming out really strong that we need to start earlier with students while they're still in our school system, which is the ages of 18 to 21. They're in transition programs in our state. We have, I don't have the demographics at the top of my fingers here, but it's pretty well dispersed between 20 to 30-year-olds, 30 to 40. It starts ticking down a little bit with 40 to 50-year-olds because we do still have a portion of the overall employment system, primarily older individuals that are working in group sites or what we would call our sheltered workshops that are in our state. We have about 600 people that are still working in sheltered programs in the state of Washington.
And Cecily, it's Sharon. I didn't hear earlier, I'm sure you mentioned it. What's your total population in that you're serving? So what percentage is the 600 over a total?
Yeah, the folks that I'm referencing, there are, in any given month in the state, between 7,000 or 7,500 individuals that are in all of our employment programs. There are, in the state, individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. The total number receiving services is around 10,000. So about 70 to 75% of those have an employment service also. We don't have enough resources right now to offer employment to everyone that's receiving a service. And we also right now have 18,000 people that get no service, that are identified as having a developmental disability in our state because of a lack of resources in our government programs. So we have a large number of people that we don't know what's happening for them, whether they're working or not, and kind of what the conditions of their supports are in their lives, unfortunately.
Excellent, thank you. And now a question from the room. In terms of the app that you described, does it replace human supports on the job, or is it a tool that assists in some of the retention process?
Both. The way that it's designed, we'll be doing coworker training so that coworkers know how to learn or share information through the app. But the app's intended to be what we would call a natural support for the individual on the job. So the employment specialist would help set up the app and all of the information that needs to go in the app. teach the individual how to self-manage with the app, teach the coworkers how to support that process, and with the goal of it being really a facilitator between the two employees. Now, there will be instances where it's something where the individual is going to need more support, and the employment support staff will have to be there to guide the process. But the overall goal is that it becomes something that's real typical. It's in the hand of the person or the coworker, and they're able to navigate together with that tool.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Another question from the room is, what are you defining as supported employment for this initiative in terms of the amount of independence at work, with or no supports, or natural supports?
In our definitions, if a person was totally naturally supported but still had a support organization assigned to them, but they had completely faded from the job, from the job site, that would still be counted in our supported employment data, but the person would receive support outside of the job. So that would be the most extreme case where they're completely independent on the job site. They would have their employment specialist as a consultant to them to talk about how things are going at work, and or to connect with their employer on either a monthly or quarterly basis, just to make sure that everything was intact and or opportunities for job progression. All the way down to, in our data, are folks that have 1 to 2 people supporting them with line of sight supervision. We have a portion of our supported employment program that involves, this is the best way for me to explain it, I guess, criminal offenders or folks that have been convicted of some sort of felony crime that are out and being supported in residential services and employment services. So we have that employment data is also woven into our supported employment, where the person is required to have a one-on-one employment professional within a line of sight of them on the job site. And there are a couple of instances in our state where it requires 2 paid professionals in line of sight for the individual to go to work. So quite a range when you think of what can go in between those 2 ends of the bell curve, so to speak, for the services.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll shift to a couple of questions on the webcast then. And I've got, just in the room, I've got sort of 3 questions waiting, so we'll just move from one to the other.
Okay.
This comes from Nick. What information do you have about small towns and making connections to employment in Washington and Oregon?
Excuse me. I would encourage you to go onto the People Working wiki site where the stories are. There are several rural stories on that website. We have, and I didn't touch on this today, but there are stories on that site about self-employment or entrepreneurs that have created their own businesses in some of the rural communities. They have in the cities as well, but you'll see some unique businesses on that site that have things like worm farms or, working as assistants in different horse farms or, whatever local agricultural things are in those areas. There's also what we encourage the rural communities to do is to really start to look at how they're going to educate on a grand scale their community and bring in information and things to the business community about what's possible. The strengths that lie in the rural communities are sometimes the things that we long for in the urban centers, which is everybody knowing each other. And so, we do have a good number of stories where we've supported people to either create their own jobs or to enhance businesses, the few businesses that are in the more rural areas of the state. There's one gentleman a company on the Wise Employers site, and the company is called Direct Interactions. And Matt Story is the owner of that company, and he speaks on the Wise Employers site. And Matt's business is a virtual company. None of his employees, all of his employees work from home, and it's a call center that does. I don't know, when your phone calls are recorded, when you get that horrible message that you're being recorded somewhere, his company reviews those calls for customer service for a variety of businesses around the world. And it's another example of access to employment for folks in rural areas. He's hired several individuals that either couldn't leave their home for a variety of personal care reasons, or they lived in such a rural area that they didn't have transportation to even get to the nearest town. And that is unique to his company as an example for individuals with and without disabilities. He's just open to hiring a diverse workforce. So it's, there's some examples there that you can find both on the people working site as well as the employer site.
Super, thank you. Now was there a question at this table here, Crystal? The one right beside you? No, not now? The lady with her hand up was there first, and then come to this table.
Hi, I was just wondering, in the beginning you alluded to the idea that families don't see individuals as employable and that being a challenge. And then you spoke to the school to work movement for individuals kind of from the age of 18. So I'm just wondering if any of your experiences have provided you with insights about the value of working with youth and with families as those individuals are younger, and working with them to kind of create that culture of employment, and what those insights might be.
Did you hear that? Yeah, that's a really important strategy and point that you're making. One of the things that we're trying to do, I talked to you about the 18 to 21-year-old group. One of the other pieces that's in play, excuse me, is that we're now starting to encourage local communities to gather families that have family members in the school system as young as the age of 5. And when someone is entering the school system or transitioning from what we call our birth to 3 services or our early intervention services, we're starting to work within our system and our schools to say that transition into school needs to also include the conversation about employment for when the person goes throughout their school-aged years, that the family understands and is connected to employment resources, especially now that we have the ability to build all this content on the web and all these tools with social media, that we're getting families connected very early on. We are at the front of that wave right now. We don't have a lot of anecdote or data on what that's going to mean, but it is certainly embedded in all of our conversations right now for planning for the future, and that we start helping families answer that, why is employment important for my son or daughter, from the time that they enter the school system. And I think, and I'm looking forward to, I wish I could jump 20 years from now into just one day to see what families have done over the next 20 years to help us make employment more typical. I think we also look to the school system right now in the way that they're educating students, in that there's, the classroom is flipping, where students are starting to learn online, and then they're starting to learn from their teacher afterwards, versus learning from the teacher in my generation and then not having anything online. Students now, including students with disabilities, have access to information in the palm of their hand, and we're trying to say you have access to understanding a variety of jobs and a variety of careers as you go through school, and trying different things out or aligning your academic path with your hopes and dreams and desires for a career. That conversation can't start early enough, and I'm hoping that we get some investment at a more broad-based scale in our state at least coming up to be able to do that. So I'll keep you posted on that. I think it's a really good thing for you guys to consider doing if you have access to the schools and the families at a really young age, is to start showing and put the image in front of them of the possibilities.
Super, thank you. Here.
Hello there, and thank you very much for your presentation thus far. I really appreciate the stats, the numbers. My question actually is in the 65% of people with disabilities that have employment. I think that's a fantastic number. My question is more related to the 35% that doesn't. And I'd like to know then if it's beneficial at all, if perhaps by scaffolding their experience through volunteerism first would strengthen both their experience and their self-esteem.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I'm having really hard. I'm picking up maybe every third word right now.
She's asking about the 35% who aren't employed, and
yes.
Help me out here to make sure that I'm getting this correct now. Are there other strategies that might work, like scaffolding their volunteer experience to help them kind of gradually get into employment?
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. I'll tell you kind of how we're approaching it right now. I think volunteering is one, definitely one strategy. I think the danger with volunteering is that sometimes it becomes a destination for people. So we're trying really hard to say, you know, volunteering and contribution is part of your life plan. And it happens to coincide to be a really good strategy to assist with building employment muscle. So that's one thing to do. We also are piloting right now in 7 communities across Washington State what we're calling technology cohorts, and that we're bringing together employment specialists, and we've been using primarily Apple technologies for those cohorts, handhelds like iPads and iTouches and those sorts of things, to make sure that people know the accessibility features of that equipment, and then also understand how to utilize a variety of apps for independence for people, as well as making sure that every single person that's unemployed has a way to independently communicate whatever their needs are and whatever their desires are. We found a lot of gaps in that group in terms of their ability to have an independent communication tool. And so we're working really hard to try and make sure that they have proper communication tools that they need. The other thing we're trying to do is we are encouraging our employment organizations to collaborate. We formed a series of projects that we number them. So if there's 3 agencies, we call it C3. If there's 4, it's C4. But they're collaborations of agencies coming together and bringing 2 or 3 people that they've chronically struggled with long-term unemployment, and they're sharing ideas and resources. So they're kind of doing a SWAT team approach to working on behalf of individuals to get them into jobs. That is, it's going slow, but it's being very effective. Most of the people that are put into the collaborative, I think we're getting about an 80% success rate of folks becoming employed, but not quickly. It's taking 1 or 2 years of collaborations to work together to move those people forward. We're also working on building more diverse employment teams around people. So asking some of our business advocates to come in and brainstorm with us to help us with finding more and more connections and networks. We're partnering with our Rotary district in the Puget Sound area. We have 55 Rotary clubs in the greater Seattle area that are all working on providing job opportunities right now, especially for young people. And we're getting about 20 to 25 jobs a year just out of that effort right now. So just a variety of things are in play where we're leveraging technology, we're trying to leverage more resource in a broader base group in the community, and we're trying to work together differently so that we can use the best of the best in each of the employment organizations on behalf of individuals.
Thank you very much. I've got several questions from people both online, and in the room, so I'm going to focus on reading them at this stage. There's several people who are interested in unpacking the stats that you have, and so for you and the definitions, one from Joyce is employment part-time or full-time within your definition of employment?
The stats that I was quoting include anyone that is receiving a paycheck from an employer. So it could be someone working full-time, it could be someone working 1 hour a week. So our definition of employment is you're earning wages, and you have what we would call a W-2 from an employer. So you're paying income taxes and Social Security taxes in our case in the States. So a range, a wide range in that group. We don't separate, we can sort by the amount of hours, so we could do ranges of people working based on ranges of hours worked, but we don't have different categories of employability, so to speak. It's all within one number.
Okay, great, thank you. Then what kind of success is there for employing people with brain injury?
You know, unfortunately, we don't have that sorted out in our data for me to be able to drill down for particular segments within the group. I would say, so I have to speak from anecdote here. You know, my feeling, and I say this cautiously because I don't have data on it, would be similar to the question earlier about visual impairments. That I think we do an adequate job at it. I wouldn't tout us as being an expert in that area, but we do, again, have pockets of excellence where people have, you know, good stories about that. I'm sorry I can't be more specific about that because that is one weakness in the data.
Yeah, I think we probably share some challenges related to data, so that might be another area that we'd find that we could do some collaboration. It would be interesting to pick up with you later.
Yeah.
Another question, do you offer webcast training for employment specialists?
What kind of training?
Webcast training.
Yes, we do. We offer 2 webinars a month just out of my organization. And what I can do really quickly, you guys bear with me here, I can show you real quick. Let me share my screen here. Sometimes it's easier just to have the visual. We have, let me go here. Bear with me here. I'll show you where you can find these. Under our events section, if you go in here, we have a calendar of events. And in here you'll see webinar information. So we usually stagger them one towards the, 1 or 2 a month. Our next webinar is Autism in the Workplace. So you just click on that and you'd be able to see who's being featured, and then the ability to register and pay for the course. All of our webinars are $30 and they're typically an hour and a half long. This one happens to be 2 hours. And in this case, we're bringing in a national consultant named James Emmett. So that's an example where you can find both what we do in person, events that we have going in person, as all of our web-based. We also have, for you to take a look at, a learning management system that is a web-based learning center that is housed here in the WISE Learning Center. If you go in here, you'll see, you'll be able to access our webinars there as well, but the first thing is our web-based learning platform. And this center has on-demand trainings. There are, some of them are Washington specific, but some are broad-based as well. See if I can, on the fly, remember my password here. This is always pressure. Oh. Anyway, you can go in here, and there's courses that are, I won't be able to show you right quick because I'm going to have a brain freeze. In the learning management system, there is the ability for you to take courses 24/7 in there. And they're short, they're anywhere between an hour to 15 to 30 minutes. And a range of topics on public benefits, history, what it means to be an employment specialist if you're brand new. And we're continually adding to that catalog of trainings that are static trainings that are web-based.
Thank you. And just for the people in the room and on the webcast to know, we had had some previous conversation with Cecily as we were setting up this session and looking at ways that we might partner in the future for webcast-based training, some that we would offer that we would share with them, and likewise the other way. So this will be a really rich resource, I think, for people that we can collaborate with each other. There's just a couple of things that have come as questions that I wanted to check that I had heard you correctly earlier, because I'm not sure now which of these have come in before they were answered. I'm remembering that you said the 600 people in sheltered employment are considered employed within your statistics?
Yes, although the data that I'm quoting you on the percent employed, they're not included in that.
Oh, they're not included in that. Okay,
they're not included in that. They're considered in our employment program, but they're not included in the outcome data that I've been quoting.
Oh, thank you. I had that. I'd heard that wrong then. So thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
And what's the minimum wage in Washington?
Oh, geez, it just changed. We're close to $9 an hour.
Okay.
Really close. I don't know the exact number because it did just change at the, you would think I would know at the first of the year. It's May already, but it's close to $9 an hour. And then, as you guys probably know, in the States, we have federal legislation that allows individuals with developmental disabilities to be paid below minimum wage. We call it sub-minimum wage, and it is a fairly controversial topic in the States. It's heating up in a big way in Congress right now, and great debate on whether there's two classes of citizens in the United States that can be paid below minimum wage. One are individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and the second is criminals, folks that are in the criminal justice system. So work programs while you're incarcerated. So those two classes can still be paid below minimum wage in our country.
Okay, thank you. And then another question, within the people you're serving that are employed, do all of them require continual support, or do you have even a sense of which might have ongoing supports and which are either independent or interim support?
There's a small percentage of people that I would say get very minimal support, and I would say that's 1 hour or less, to 0 hours. But the only way I would know about them if they got less than 1 hour is if they were still receiving an employment service, which would mean they were connected with an employment organization. that was getting paid to track them or keep in contact with them. So I don't have the percentage off the top of my head on that piece, but we do have access to that data to show, let's say, people that are receiving less than 2 hours a month of support. We could extract that and look at that data.
So that might be another conversation that we could have. And do you unpack it as far as knowing which of them or how much of them are contract work as opposed to employed wages work?
All of those in that instance, I can say this pretty confidently. If people were getting that minimum amount of support noted, they would have individual jobs.
Okay.
They wouldn't be in contract work jobs.
I just want to touch base with the room here. I've got a couple of questions that are quite detailed about the measurement and collecting of data. And I'm going to read them out, but I'm going to suggest that we write them to Cecily as well as just the whole list of questions to make sure that we've got the answers. And then we could get a more full answer than we can do verbally. And so, but I'll read them out so you know what they are. What are you measuring or collecting with your outcome data you publish? Is it the number of people employed by agency? How long have they been working? What industry are they working in? What's their rate of pay? And what's the return rate in terms of having lost their job? And the second one is that you mentioned that gathering information is somewhat problematic. How do you currently collect information on employment needs in Washington State? And what plans do you have to collect this kind of information in the future? And so I'm going to put those in writing to Cecily, and we will add them to the list of questions that are posted on the website that you'll have access to so that we can deal with those in the proper amount of detail. Now in the room, I had another question here at this front table. Is there others? And then there's one in about the middle. So Crystal, this one was first, and then this one in the middle. Right here at the front table.
Thank you. My name is Rich, and I work for Deaf and Hard of Hearing Society. I'm wondering if you've ever been faced with the situation where you have coupled an employee with an employer. However, the technology has not worked out. It was not successful. How do you overcome those barriers? How do you overcome that challenge when you've already made accommodations and they're not appropriate?
Can you hear that, Cecily?
Could you repeat it for me? Because I'm actually able to hear your voice a lot clearer for some reason.
I'll try and say it again then. In a situation, have you ever had a situation, this is coming from the Society for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, have you ever had a situation where there has been accommodation, but the technology hasn't worked out? Are there what's your next level of contingency planning if the first type of accommodation doesn't work out?
Yes, we have had that. I was just in a conversation at a conference earlier this week about the very same thing. And one of the things that I'm recognizing now and that I really want to share with you is that if we look back, I'm actually old enough to know employment services before technology. And I think that there needs to be attention to continuing to train low-tech solutions for accommodations in our field paired with high-tech solutions. And one of the reasons that I say this, and I've learned this from a friend of mine who experiences a significant set of barriers to employment, and she uses eye gaze technology to run her computer, and she's not able to do it any other way. And she said to me, you need to be careful of assuming that technology is something that everyone's going to embrace, number one, and the individuals themselves, because it can be quite daunting to, as I'm experiencing today, the feeling of making sure my technology works to support me versus becomes an additional barrier to my employment. It causes a great deal of anxiety for some people. And number two, she said, it can fail. And so she, as an example, uses eye gaze technology to run her computer. But when that interface breaks down and she's unable to run it, she has a support person that's trained that knows how to, she uses eye language. She does Morse code combination of communication with her eyes. And so she has a staff person that's trained that can communicate on her behalf with her eye language that's been created. And so I think that we as support professionals need to make sure that each individual has a full continuum of things at their disposal to make sure that their supports are in place. I think we need to do that for ourselves in terms of how, my support today is a result of, a work mishap that I had and being able to use technology as a backup plan. And that's no different than anyone that we're supporting and how we support them either through high-tech or low-tech interventions. And I think that when we get excited about having tools and utilities and fancy technology to help us answer some complex questions, we have to also be very, very vigilant and diligent in our design of the wraparound for that support not being there one day or a couple of days or there's a breakdown. And I think that's coming to the forefront now for us in our work. Again, we have random acts of excellence of that, but it needs to become a standard that we hold for everyone we're designing supports.
Great, thank you. There's another question in the room. Oh, there's one in the middle, Crystal. The lady with the beige sweater. Oh, Dota's there, okay.
Hi, Renata from Gateway. Hi, Sess, it's great to see you again.
Hi, Renata.
So, again, a question about stats, because we're obsessed with stats up here, because we have very few. Your 65% placement, how did you get that stat? Is that just placement, or is that after someone has had their job for 6 months or a year?
Okay, I hate to do this. I'm going to have that repeated. I don't know about you ladies, but your voices aren't coming through as well as the guys are.
No problem. About the 65, what she said is we're obsessed with stats up here because we have so few. So she's interested in the 65%. What is your entry point to that? Is it when a person's placed or when they're deemed to be successful in their employment? Have I got that correct? And retention, and they're being retained on the job.
It's after they start earning wages, so in the beginning. So one of the pieces in our data set that when I give you guys more detailed information, we get the majority of our data from our Department of Labor, not from our disability division. So what we do is we have a working relationship with the Department of Labor in our state where our Division of Developmental Disabilities sends them identification numbers. They sort all of the workers in the state and they pull out and extract our group of workers and give us back the actual labor data that they would be collecting on any one of us as a new employee. So one of the things that we try to do culturally is we also try to measure our data to the same degree that everyone's measured in the employment system. So we want to be comparing apples to apples. We want to compare the subset of the culture of individuals with disabilities to the general working population using the same metrics. So in our state, you're counted as employed the first day you go to work and you hit the employment data. Because our employers are required to enter in when they've hired someone. So we do it that way.
All right. There's another question in the room.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
So far, so good.
So far, so good. My name is Corinne. I'm a provincial coordinator for a virtual employment site, and I just want to reflect on the question around retentions. From your organization's perspective, how long do your retentions last? Like, so in ours, we follow a 3-month, a 6-month, a 9-month, and a 12-month. In-house, we do that. So with yours, when you look at success within your organization, what would you call that retention line?
So we might be looking at it a little bit differently. So you're talking about measuring retention in increments 3, 6, 9, 12 months, correct?
Yes, that's what she said.
Okay. I would say we do that and we just keep going. In that we can track start dates for each individual that's receiving the service and look at the length of time that they've been employed. We have, in some instances, a few cases where people are retiring after 30-year careers in government jobs, for instance. So we have retention data that, somebody may have had a job that long. They're the minority, but there are those cases. So we don't have a requirement for intervals of reporting. Our agencies report monthly. They upload to our state the same data that's being pulled from the Department of Labor, so we can cross-check and make sure that the agencies are reporting what we're getting out of the Department of Labor, and that would show length of employment. So it would show that the person's still employed and we'd have their start date. So we can look at it monthly, we could look at it quarterly, or we could look at it annually. And there's a longitudinal component.
Okay, thank you very much. Cecily, we've just got about a couple of minutes left in the time for this session, so I'm going to reiterate my previous message to the folks in the room and on the webcast. Any questions that I have in my hand that have not been read out, we will include on the list of questions that we get answers from Cecily, either by mail or by phone, and we will have them posted on the website so that you know if your question was asked that it will get an answer. But I'd like to leave you, Cecily, with one last question.
Okay.
How are you evaluating the success of your employment initiatives?
One job at a time. No, in all seriousness, we're analyzing it at multiple levels. One, we're surveying our population and our community for what their needs are. So we do an annual review for the state of Washington. My organization does that for them, where we send out information to the communities about what they need and how things are going. So we do some surveying. We are rabid about paying attention to our data, both at the local and state level. Right now, the state of Washington has a goal that we set in 2010 to double the number of people working in individual jobs by 2015. And we are having a big employment meeting this June where we're bringing together about 300 people to review our progress from the employment agencies and the governmental entities that are funding those services, and some families. So I'm organizing that event right now. So we do things of that nature. My organization does an annual report every year that shows how much training activity and what types of training are being provided based on what people are asking for. And then, on the other hand, every year we have a legislative session where we are required with our state legislature to show what the return on their investment is for employment services. And so we also keep an eye on what we call a cost-benefit ratio, which is for every dollar the government puts in, how much of that are they getting back in return on their investment. And right now we're still really close to $1 for dollar return on investment. I would say we're maybe $1.01 or $1.05. The government pays $1 for employment service. The community is going to get back $1.05 of activity and benefit from that individual going to work. So right now we really hold tried and true to making sure that if this service is funded, it pays back completely to the system what was provided to it in the form of wages and new taxpayers in our state. So it's kind of a long answer, and it's a varietal answer, but I think we're doing it on all levels in terms of trying to keep track of things.
Excellent. I know that one of the people watching is the ministry lead for strategic evaluation, and so that might be another area that where we can come together and see if we can have some commonalities. So I'd like to draw this session to a close, although I know it could go on for a long, long time because the questions just keep coming in. So you were wise to break for questions a little earlier than we had originally planned.
I figured that would be the thing to do. I was hoping that I could have done it in person because it was much more personable, but I appreciate still being able to join you all this way.
Well, maybe we can arrange another event or something where we can manage that. The weather here is starting to be really, well, unless you like, if you like construction, it's really good here, but other than that...
Well, I've been to your city one other time, and I have never been in as cold of weather as I had experienced when my nostrils were freezing in your airport when I was getting my rental car. So I'd love to come during the summer.
Excellent. Well, we'll see what we can do to arrange that. Please join me in thanking Cecily, and because it is no mean feat to travel at night, which is what she was doing when we realized that she wasn't going to be able to carry on to get here, and to kind of work in the night and then be up early this morning to make sure that the technology could work, and to do so for such a long time has been just a yeoman effort. Thank you very much. Cecily, please join me.
You're welcome. Thank you. Have a great Friday, and I'm going to go ahead and sign off.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So I just want to check in with you. We had arranged this time for the next 15 minutes to be a reflection time that we could kind of take all in, take a moment, kind of think about what it was we've heard, and have a little conversation at the table for 5 minutes, and then kind of share 3 or 4 people in terms of ahas, what you will take away from this, what are areas you think you might be able to implement. My sense, though, is that we've all used a lot of energy in this last session, and so I'm suggesting that we flip coffee and the break and visit the trade show with this reflection, if we come back in 20 minutes and start the reflection. I'm getting vigorous nods at the front table, and so I'm not seeing people at the back give me any cue about what you'd like to do, so wave at me if you'd like to go to coffee now. We're getting lots of waves at the back. Okay, so then that's for sure. If you look in your package, the Showcasing Technologies piece with the blue lines, make sure if there's 2 or 3 vendors and trade show booths that you have not yet seen, please do that this morning, and so that we can have a chance to include that in our reflection. We'll be back in 20 minutes, and I'll see you then, which I think will be 20 to 11.
We're here to introduce the MV1, the world's first factory-built wheelchair accessible vehicle. Historically, the wheelchair accessibility market has been met by vans that were built for another purpose that were then put through extensive modifications and conversions to make them do the job. Unlike that, the MV1 was built from a blank sheet of paper to be a wheelchair accessible van. It has a full boxed frame. The body sits on the frame, and the vehicle comes out of off the assembly line ready to be a wheelchair accessible van. The MV1 is a 1-chair van which has the capacity to carry a driver and up to 4 additional passengers. 3 passengers can be accommodated in a rear bench seat which handles 95th percentile, 6'2", 225-pound passengers. There is an optional jump seat for a caregiver. It gets a little bit cozy with that. And the wheelchair can be placed in one of two positions, the shotgun position adjacent to the driver or in the second row of the vehicle. The central feature of the MV1 is the integrated access ramp. The side access ramp, and there's a manual ramp option, and there's also a power ramp option. The power ramp option, which is what you're seeing today, deploys to two different lengths. It's controlled by a switch in this access door. The operator simply selects the length of the ramp that they want to deploy and holds the button until the ramp comes out of the vehicle, sets down on the curb, and similarly, but with the push of a button, the ramp will retract back into the vehicle. The MV1 was designed through an extensive process that took about 4 years. The input was gained from wheelchair users, commercial transportation companies, automotive experts, and one of the founding underlying principles was that the vehicle would meet the Americans with Disabilities Act regulations, which is actually quite new legislation, and the parallel Canadian legislation is called D409 from Transport Canada. The MV1 comes with a very comprehensive warranty. It's typical of most automotive products in this era. The vehicle is warranted for 36 months, 60,000 kilometers bumper to bumper, 5 years or 60 months, and 120,000 kilometers for the powertrain, 5 years, 120,000 kilometers on the ramp, and 5 years, 160,000 against corrosion and rust through. For more information on the MV1, please visit mv1ofedmonton.com and follow the links.
Personal Lifeguard is an automated check-in system to give your family, your employer peace of mind so that they know that you're safe. Personal Lifeguard could be used for just about anyone, from realtors to home care workers to your kids out in the workforce. How Personal Lifeguard works is you've got 3 setting intervals, half an hour, hour, and 2 hour. It's on a 24-hour clock. You can set your time, and then it automatically pops up on your screen. So you pick a safe symbol when you register with Personal Lifeguard, and at that time you touch your symbol, that notifies the server that you're safe, and it doesn't send any alerts out to your contacts. If my daughter was on a date with the Personal Lifeguard system, it gives us a peace of mind. When her symbols pop up on whatever setting she has, a half hour, hour, or 2 hour, and she's not comfortable in the situation, she can hit a wrong symbol, which is the emergency symbols, out of the 6, and it will send emergency notification right to us immediately. By that, we know where she is because she is being GPS tracked incrementally, every snapshots of her everywhere she goes. With people that have mental or physical disabilities, having our system in their smartphone or their tablet, they can automatically check in without a home care nurse calling in to check on them or their parents or their daughter, vice versa. This is an automated system. They check in, nobody bothers them. If they don't check in, it sends an alert out after 10 minutes. Personal Lifeguard provides people a sense of independence. Personal Lifeguard is $5.95 a month for the personal plan. It's available on BlackBerry, Android, and iPhone, and it's available worldwide in every language. Personal Lifeguard Services offers our service free of charge to anybody the age 65 and over and with a disability, worldwide. For more information, visit our website at www.yourplg.com.
I think the most important thing about Aroga Technologies is that a lot of people with disabilities, when they look at employment, participation in the community, education, different things like that, they run into a lot of barriers, a lot of obstacles, and your first reaction is this is going to be insurmountable. And I think technology plays a great role in the fact that it reduces those barriers, it opens up doors, it opens up opportunities for people to participate, whether that be in their daily living activities, whether that be in an educational pursuit, and ultimately, the end goal being employment. Aroga sells technology that's related to individuals with disabilities. It's called assistive technology, and it's there to assist the individual with overcoming some of those barriers that are presented. So when people think about disability, different things come to mind. Aroga deals with all disability groups. That might be somebody with a physical disability, that might be somebody with a hearing impairment, that might be somebody who's lost vision, is totally blind, has a learning disability, or has a communication disability that doesn't allow them to communicate properly. So we have technology for all of those different types of groups. So for example, when we look at low vision technology, we like to use a lot of CCTVs, which are magnification devices. When we deal with people that have communication disabilities, we use augmentative communication devices that allow people to generate speech. When we deal with individuals with learning disabilities, participating in education, there are products out there that will help you read material, write better, understand better, plan and organize yourself better. So there's a product for everybody. Connecting with Aroga happens in a lot of different ways. A lot of our seniors connect with us directly to look for low vision equipment, but a lot of individuals connect with Aroga through a government support, through their educational service providers, through an assessment facility within the community. So coming into contact with Aroga can come in a lot of different ways. We do have a great website. It's www.aroga.com. If you go there, we have over 1,000 catalog items. You'll be able to get a good introduction of what types of technologies are available for different disability groups. And of course, contacting us directly is a telephone call or an email away, and we can be of assistance to identify what technology is going to be right for what you're trying to accomplish.
The Employability's Career and Employment Center, it's an innovative program that's been in the agency for approximately 18 months, close to 2 years. And it's an opportunity for anyone who happens to have a medical condition, a barrier to employment, or a disability to come on in, be able to see and view some of the resources that we happen to have. We have Alberta Works publications, we happen to have information on job search, we happen to have job leads for our employers. We also can look at doing some career planning. We happen to have just a wealth of information and resources available, and they do not need an appointment. Just come on through the door. We welcome them to be here and, see the resources, meet with an employment coach, and set a plan of action. All the services at Employabilities are at no cost. Some of our programs happen to have a tuition fee to them, but we work with Student Aid Alberta in order to be able to find a grant for that. Here at Employabilities, we have a variety of assistive technologies. We have everything from adjustable tables that can be raised and lowered for people who are using wheelchairs or mobility, scooters for mobility. We happen to have the print magnifier for individuals who happen to have visual impairments. We happen to have TTY accessibility for individuals who are deaf and hard of hearing. We happen to have the Interpretype system, which is a system that people can communicate with each other very quickly. It's portable, it's really accessible and easy for individuals to use quite quickly. We happen to have single-handed keyboards, big keys keyboards for people with visual impairments. We have a variety of software for individuals with learning disabilities. There's just a vast array of the types of technologies we have available, and it's all done more on an individual basis rather than, just having them available for groups, but individuals come on in and we'll find the technology that happens to suit them. Here at the Career and Employment Centre, we're based in Edmonton, and it's Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. But we also have locations up in Cold Lake, Bonnyville, Lac-La-Biche, St. Paul, Vegreville, Fort Saskatchewan. Those are home-based offices, and we work with Alberta Works quite closely to be able to provide the services for individuals there. You can find us in a number of ways. We do happen to have our website, which is www.employabilities.ab.ca. We can also we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. There's ways of individuals to be able to connect with us. The goal of disability-related employment supports, DRES, is actually to increase the awareness of Albertans for persons with disabilities to get hired in the workplace by helping Albertans and employers be able to accommodate individuals in their workplace and increase employment retention. I'm here to talk about Alberta Works and disability-related employment supports. Disability-related employment supports are a tool and a service that is provided within Alberta Works that provides supports and services to Albertans with disabilities. Some of the supports and services that we provide are things like tutors for individuals accessing different training programs. We may provide funding for computer software, for voice to text speech, for instance. Another tool might be even a vehicle accommodation so an individual can get to and from work. And something more recently that we have noticed that's really helping individuals retain employment is job coaching services and assessment. And that is something that falls within Alberta Works. And individuals wanting to access any of these programs or learn more about it can go onto our website, can go onto the ALIS website, alis.gov.ab.ca, or they can pop into one of our Career Alberta Works Centres. And we have 4 Alberta Works Centres in the Edmonton area, and they're all over the province. Okay, we've got some great short videos on the ALIS website that feature different topics of career planning. Everything from a person job searching, accessing our Career Alberta Works Centres, and as well things about job loss, diversity, how does a person with a disability access employment, how do employers help retain employees. It's quite diverse, the number of videos we have and the number of publications we have also at our sites and online. Information about DRES is available on the Government of Alberta website. It's available at the ALIS website, and you'll also find it in information on our publications. A lot of different areas will focus back to disability-related employment supports.
Do you have questions about planning your career? Need advice on education options? Looking for resume help? The Career Information Hotline is your place for expert answers to all these questions and much more. It's a free service where career advisors can be contacted online or by phone for help on a variety of career, education, and employment topics. For example, if you need advice on career planning, career advisors can guide you towards determining your interests and how to get the planning process started. You'll learn about various occupations and be directed to information about working conditions, skills and training requirements, and even salary ranges. If you want to know more about your education options, career advisors can help you with information on full or part-time post-secondary education and apprenticeship. They can also let you know about funding options like scholarships, loans, and employment insurance. When it comes to job search skills, the hotline is a good source for tips on writing a resume, putting together cover letters and references, as well as researching and preparing for interviews. To ask a question online, use the e-question submission page. Simply fill out the online form with your contact information and question. Click on Submit, and you're done. It's that easy. A career advisor will review your question and send you an expert answer within 3 business days. If you'd like to speak with a career advisor, you can also phone the Career Information Hotline toll-free at 1-800-661-3753 or locally in Edmonton at 780-422-4266. Ever wanted to have your resume professionally reviewed? Take advantage of the hotline's e-resume review service. It's a free service for Albertans and those looking to work in Alberta. Fill out a quick and easy form, attach your resume, click Submit, and your resume will be reviewed by an expert. Career advisors will respond within 3 to 5 business days and provide you with professional feedback on your resume. As you can see, Alice's Career Information Hotline is a powerful resource. Career advisors are just a click or phone call away from offering you help with every step of your career planning, educational, and employment process. Why not contact them today?
If you've entered the world of work, you'll find the Workplace Resources section on ALICE to be informative and useful. Whether you're wondering about rights as a worker or how to manage workplace issues, you'll find links, tips, and publications here. Pages include Rights and Responsibilities, Enhancing the Workforce, and Managing Work Relationships. Every worker has both rights and responsibilities on the job. Many of the rules that must be followed in Alberta, such as minimum wage or the length of a workday, are set out in legislation. The Rights and Responsibilities section directs you to resources on labor laws and human rights and provides other practical directions, such as how to apply for employment insurance online. Did you know that you can refuse to do dangerous work? This section also links you to information about the laws, programs, and services that keep your workplace safe. Through the Enhancing the Workforce page, you can learn about work search and which jobs are in demand. You can access information on what wages are being paid using the labor market information links, strategies for staff development, and tips on how to balance life and work. The Managing Work Relationships section is all about human resources. In other words, how to make the most of your work life. Useful links cover topics like skills development, disability on the job, and how to succeed at work by being a valued employee. Succeeding at work also means nurturing your life outside the workplace. You can find tips on achieving a healthy work-life balance in the Managing Work Relationships section as well. One thing is certain, our workplaces are always evolving. Whether you're on your first day of the job or in your 10th year as senior manager, you'll benefit from the comprehensive links and publications in the Workplace Resources section of ALICE.
Visiting the trade show vendors here in the room. And on the webcast, I hope you're enjoying the vignettes that we have been making of the vendors so that they can be posted for you over the break. As we reassemble in the room, I just have a couple of things that I wanted to bring forward. One is a major shout out to Amy and Andy for their work in making the technology for that presentation to work. When we got the call last night at about 6 o'clock, when Aaron got the call at 6 o'clock last night and sort of put everybody on red alert, it was largely due to Amy and Andy that could be made to work. So thank you very much. The second thing is to bring your attention to, in the room you'll have the benefit of the flyers, for a deaf-blind awareness speaker, Christine Coco Rochart, who travels many countries of the world while she explores various deaf-blind communities in other countries. We'll be here in Edmonton on June the 10th from 6 to 8 p.m. Admission is $5 for EFDB members and under 18 and $10 for non-members. So please, here and on the registration desk are some flyers, or you can speak to one of the representatives of the community here to find more out about this very interesting looking session. So thank you for bringing it to our attention. So, taking a moment to take a breath. People were very engaged in Cecily's presentation, and so I'm taking that as a signal that it was a valuable and a contribution to our learning. So I'm interested now for you to take sort of 2 or 3 minutes, not a long time, at your table or just with your elbow partner, to just talk out loud about 1 or 2 things that you took away from that presentation, and the questions that you would be able to use or influence the way you work right away. Not necessarily in the long term, but right away. So do that for 2 or 3 minutes, and then I'll come back and I'll confine this to the room just because of the time we have. Just several, I'll ask people to share ahas just at random around the room. So 2 or 3 minutes. What did you take away from that presentation? Okay. So is there anyone who would like to share what your thoughts were. One or two things that you took away. Anyone in the room have a point that they'd like to? Doda? Right here, Louise. Thank you.
Hi. One thing that we were chatting about was that it would be terrific to have a Made in Alberta site such as WISE had, and we could possibly use their platform and learn from that. I think we've got some excellent examples of different websites, but they tend to be agency specific, and it really shouldn't be run by the government. Speaking as a government person. We tend to be a little less nimble than people in the communities, and our messages tend to need a bit more scripting. So real novelty, innovation, quick responses like they have, I think that's something we should be doing. It was a terrific site.
Great. Anyone else, in terms of one or two things you took away? I can't see so well against the light, so please wave. Is there one at the back, am I seeing? Then if you're not so happy to, whoop, are we here? Okay.
Is this one? Okay. What I really appreciated was the flexibility that they have. So there was more flexibility within the program and what they were able to provide services to their clients. I think we're very often restricted in terms of employment supports by all kinds of restrictions from the government. And so there are some advantages and disadvantages clearly, but I think that very often the funding is not there for follow-up services to continue in this type of supports, perhaps even for a year or 2 years and whatnot. So that's just one of my things that I've noticed here in Alberta that's lacking.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? One last point, yes?
I particularly liked how Cecily emphasized the data collection and tracking the stats. I think just to caboose onto the last comment that was made, there is so much work that goes in the front end of employment. Like we're working with the Rotary Partnership Program through AACL. And when I talk to my coordinators on the ground, and I think I've harped about this at the last gathering like this, but I don't think our funders realize just how much time and the relationship. Carrie Griffiths talks about it as a dating process, you know. You don't rush a date. A good date takes time, and you schmooze and you build that relationship. And I think the same goes for good, solid employment.
Yes.
You've got to do all that relationship building. And so it's not just a little check of a box that we got a bum in a seat for a job. Like there's all that really, really valuable stuff. So that just, I wanted to make that point.
And that came up yesterday too, didn't it? About the need to kind of get together and figure out what are metrics, especially at that front end. Not that you wouldn't use it in the same traditional quantitative way, but some interesting ways that you can bring that more visible. Great. Well, thank you very much. And if you would also kind of, if you did have thoughts or ahas or things that you took away, would you just please note them down on the colored paper at your table, and we'll gather them up so that they can be also part of the record, because other people will learn from what you've identified. It will help them to think about different things. So one of the things that Cecily was in our thinking as we planned this agenda, that Cecily was a bit of a pivot point as well, that because they had started into building some technological supports, their app, that then brought that part of the agenda for the Learning Symposium into the picture as well. So now we're going to pivot more completely into looking at technology. Now, technology isn't solely intended to be looked at for employment. Clearly, one has to have a life before one can have a satisfying employment. And so technology covers both those pieces. So to start us off, we're going to have an overview by Kirby Wright, and as the others, his bio is in the package. But Kirby is one of those wonderful folks who can bring the world of technology into our practical applications in terms of, and sort of, it's always helpful for me that he sort of demystifies it and helps me kind of figure I'm a little bit more able to wander through the forest of technology and all of the bells and whistles that it has with some degree of critical eye. So I'd really ask you to join me in welcoming Kirby to the stage.
No, I'll just have it.
Oh, you said it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay. So. Do you have any audio with this? No, I'm okay. No, holding mic's fine. Okay. Should be okay. Perfect. Great, thank you very much. I feel a little bit like the Monty Python skit, and now for something completely different, because we're going to shift away from employment and talk about not only as how technology fits in the world of employment, but as more broadly around how technology can support the world of persons with disabilities, and as you'll quickly see, how we all need to think differently about technology ourselves. So I want to take a very much of a different approach, and this is not going to be, if you will, focused on particular technologies, but looking at the area much more broadly. And just to give you a sense, for me, technology is broadly defined as, if you will, the application of science. And it's the machines, the devices, the systems that we all use in our lives, both high-tech and low-tech, that make a big difference. And as you've been watching and talking to people in the trade show, you can just see the vast array of different choices, different options, and the diversity that exists around technologies in this field, but more broadly. And as well, one of the really unique things we pulled together, there's a huge amount of inventiveness and creativity that's being demonstrated in some of the technologies that are available to look at today. So I want you to take a little bit of a fresh approach. So think about your day as it's sorted out so far. And let's take a look at the technologies that you may have been impacted by. So we stumbled out of our beds this morning and went into the shower and tried to wake ourselves up from our sleep. And if you think about just that particular act, obviously there's a shower that you took or a bath, and there's some devices there. But more importantly was the luxury we have certainly in Edmonton and in North America of accessing clean water. And that clean water comes through a series of pipes and systems that is a whole array of very sophisticated technology. But even more important for all of us this morning was we wanted our water hot, probably, because it's better than a cold shower. So think about the fact that you've got a water heater, and you've got the pipes, and you've got electricity and natural gas, all of which add other levels of technology. All of those, for most of us, are invisible, and we're just taken for granted, but they're critical pieces in our lives that are vital for the way we think. We probably next wander down into our kitchen for some breakfast and probably a cup of coffee to further stimulate our brains into some level of activity. Think about the technologies that exist. It's obviously way more than just the coffee pot and the toaster. Those coffee beans that you maybe either ground or were available for you came from another country, obviously, and that required a whole level of transportation infrastructure and technology. If you had a piece of toast, that bread was produced on a farm, and that farm required a vast array of technology. It then went to a bakery and the creation of flour and the bread. It needed to be then moved to a store where you're able to buy it. So again, think of all these intersecting pieces around technologies that impact our lives on a real-time basis and how important that they are. Some of us then needed to get to work or to this location. Perhaps we took the train, we drove ourselves. We relied on a pretty sophisticated system of technology, not only in these devices that we use to travel, but the infrastructure required to maintain those. And here's, for me, the first interesting piece around some of the implications for persons with disabilities. Obviously, we've gotten better at allowing our trains and buses and other vehicles to be able to support people with mobility challenges or disability challenges. But certainly if we're talking about employment, one of the unique things for me is when you think about the Edmonton marketplace in particular, is often the most interesting jobs, the places where people are hiring the most, are not just downtown, but they're in our industrial parks. They're out in Nisku and Leduc and in Atchison and to the west. And those places don't have great transportation or access. So if you're a young worker who's just starting out and needs to get out to Nisku every morning, it's a big challenge if you don't have access to your own vehicle. So as much as we can see the power of technology to make some of our lives easier, we also see its real limitations. I guess the next piece for most of us, we also needed to immediately be able to check our email or go on the web. It's always an interesting question if you ask people, how long can you go in the morning between the time you wake up before you have to first check your email and a critical website? And it's increasingly at a shorter and shorter time period all the time. It's become a critical piece. If you think about that though, it was only in 1997, 15 years ago, that most of us first had any access at all to email. 2002 were the first websites. So this is what's become a critical piece of technology that enables our lives, and certainly wouldn't have allowed the session we saw this morning to be even possible, is a pretty recent phenomenon, yet it's become a pretty vital part of all of our lives as moving forward. And what happens when it doesn't work? Well, think about this. This is a sign, this is from New York after the Sandy hurricane when the power was out. The cell towers were still up, but one of the most critical pieces of technology was, how was I going to charge my cell phone? So some of the few businesses that exist out there were able to put out an extension cord that was connected to another extension cord, and people literally just put their cell phones on the sidewalk to get that vital 30 minutes or 1 hour of charging activity that would allow them to be able to still function in the world. The fact that we're more and more dependent on technology is kind of illustrated by the desperate needs in this picture for sure. So the pattern for me is pretty clear. We are highly reliant on technology. Human beings are the only living species that really have been able to create their own technologies. Some would argue that the fact that we were able to create technologies is the only reason that we're able to survive at all, because in the big world we're not particularly well equipped to fight against other animals and activities. So we rely on technology. And you often hear people say, well, no, my life is only about 20% or whatever is a technology piece that's vital for us. And I think we can argue back and forth on what the right percentage point is. My critical piece is that as a foundational element, it's absolutely essential that we have access to technology because we're so reliant on it. So as we think about what we expect with our technologies, there's a whole array of things, and I would argue that our expectations are increasing all the time about what we demand from them. Obviously that they need to work. We want things that are increasingly reliable, that they function well. Increasingly, we're not prepared to climb steep learning curves around our technology. We expect them to be intuitive, and good technology is. So many of us have lived for far too long with the perpetual flashing 12 o'clock light in our VCRs in our rooms. And is that us being stupid, or in fact just really bad examples of technology design? Hopefully we can say it's their fault, not ours. We're increasingly looking for our technologies to be accessible. Accessible has multiple levels of meaning for me, but one of the pieces that's related to accessibility is not only access, but it's affordability. Can we get access to that so we can even use it? Is our technology customizable? This is still, I think, a moving curve, but we're starting to see more and more technology that's actually able to learn and adapt to our particular preferences or expectations or needs. And finally, I think we're also seeing technology as being required to have better design features. And I'll talk a bit about that later because I think that's an increasingly piece. And when I talk about design, it's more than just being pretty, because there's critical elements there that are vital for not only all of us, but also as we're thinking about technologies for persons with disabilities. So it takes us to an interesting question. Is this a fundamental, almost a human right, our access to technology? And obviously, it's a deep enough question that we're not going to try and answer that here. But it raises some interesting challenges, because if that's, in fact, one of the things that we aspire to, then we need to acknowledge that it's not equally distributed. Technology is obviously linked to access to financial capacity, to physically where you live in the world is often determines your technology, and also the disability piece. And it's critical for us, if we're serious about thinking around technology as a right that we all enjoy, what does that mean for us? What does that mean for the way we design technologies, for the considerations we do, even our technology literacy? Because I believe that if in fact we're increasingly reliant on technology and we're seeing it as something that's demanding for accessibility for everybody, then it pushes us to ask different types of questions. But before we kind of jump on the technology bandwagon, for me, we need to be careful about making technology a critical poster child. Let me provide a simple example. The book, for thousands of years now, beginning with papyrus scrolls, then moving to a monk laboriously sitting in a monastery in Ireland transcribing books by hand, to the Gutenberg movable press, books have been able to transform our lives. Some people would argue that the book itself is the most important technology of all, because the ability to capture knowledge and share that has allowed other technologies to be shared and dispersed. You could look at that in multiple ways. It's interesting to look even the Gutenberg Bible. In 1450 was the first Bible. Within 50 years, over 20 million books had been produced. It's an amazing number in medieval Europe because of the movable print database. Some would argue that that alone was able to jumpstart the whole Enlightenment and eventually the Industrial Revolution, because for the first time we could share information and knowledge rapidly, and we could make that knowledge available to more than just the most wealthy and affluent. But if you think about the book, on one hand, you have the longevity. There are still examples of Gutenberg Bibles in its present, so it's had a 500-year lifespan. The portability is obviously important. It's got a simple operating system. You turn the pages. I don't know if any of you have seen the classic YouTube video of trying to teach the monk to turn the page. It's hilarious because they're teaching it as a help desk person, and it shows the weaknesses of our technologies. It provides a way to share ideas, and it's affordable. But on the other hand, it's certainly not as useful if you have sight limitations. Literacy is a requirement. It doesn't allow us to have multimedia. And as I was thinking about an illustration for that, we've got an atlas on our table at home that's from the 1990s. It's almost a joke to open up that atlas today and realize that the world, the coastlines haven't changed anything, but all the countries have. You look at modern Europe now, and 15 years ago, there were 20 or so different countries and names and locations that have changed since then. So the book, for all of its power, is certainly very much more difficult to update. So it raises an interesting challenge that even a book, which is the ubiquitous of all technologies that we see as being inherently valuable, also has some serious limitations. So it's critical when we think about technologies to realize that we can't look at it obviously with it's always positive. We need to take off our rose-colored glasses and think about that. So the very things that have allowed us to build libraries that are the combination of art and science, in some ways are also inherently limiting. So to take this into a slightly different direction, for me, the interesting shift in technology right now is the ability for us to easily and more effectively create new technologies. And that, for me, is a much more important challenge and opportunity than to try and go into a future state of what are the technologies we're going to use. And I want to really quickly talk about a number of different components and try and illustrate the importance of these. So, for those of you who haven't run into Angry Birds yet, you're only one of 1.7 billion people who have downloaded this app who have missed this kind of pattern. So, and obviously the focus of this discussion is not only to talk about a powerful app like Angry Birds, but it does illustrate an interesting shift in the way that we have started to create technology and applications. Simple, easy to use, not very complicated. For the company that built it, it didn't take them very much time. And it represents, in my mind, an interesting example of the new opportunities we have to be able to create new types of applications that just work and are at the same time enjoyable and well designed. So right now, if you go to the iTunes store, you can get access to 775,000 Probably it's changed since even that's been put out, apps that are available. Interesting enough, that's an Apple reality, but it's similar reality for the Android version. There's increasing interest in the BlackBerry and other Microsoft platforms. So we're seeing this proliferation of apps. And so to take this back to yesterday's presentation, as Miles was talking about the frustrations he had in his organization about filling in the monthly time card and how, in fact, that had caused him to have real problems with the employment, my first reaction was, I share that. I don't think that's an issue of FASD or whatever. I hate filling in time cards, and I would guess most of us in the room share those same things. And so first thing I did is I went to the App Store and looked at it. Right now, we can get over 260 applications to help us fill in our monthly time cards. Most of those are less than $5 each to buy. So if you're a small organization and you're investing, you have the expectation that once a month you have all of your people manually filling in long forms of what you've done that month so you can process pay, you're not making very good use of your time. And so the idea that we can now create special purpose apps and make them freely available is a dramatic shift, because in the past, if you were even a small organization, that might have been a cost prohibitive challenge for you to think about, how do we automate this activity? Do we have to buy big software applications? When we start to think about the implications of apps, that increasingly allows any size organization, any individual, family, whatever, to profitably and effectively use these technologies in different ways. So I would encourage some of those organizations to go and pick some of those cheap apps off the thing and weave that into their practices, because at the end of the day, that might be much more useful to deal with that particular disability and habit than to try and push people to continue to fill in the paper forms. But we're seeing in this whole world of technology more than just a shift to building more apps and using software. There's this whole new movement, which I call the maker do-it-yourself movement, that is absolutely transforming what we're seeing. Some people are actually suggesting that it's going to allow us to bring back our manufacturing sectors away from Asia back into North America. Because what we're having is the ability now to much more rapidly create customized, specialized products, to be able to prototype them, to create 3D printer models, to be able to test them, and to get them into the marketplace in smaller quantities in still a business manageable way. And so one of the things that you're going to hear this afternoon is from around the Tetra Society is that the ability for us to be able to make powerful technologies locally to be able to meet needs. And I think that's going to have dramatic implications for persons with disabilities and in fact all of us. So to illustrate that, my classic, going back to my early history days, this was the first airplane that flew in British North America, made by Alexander Graham Bell. And when you think about that airplane, it was made of fabric, wire, metal, a little bit of wood, and a motorcycle engine. And it was able to fly, and actually they were able to recreate it 100 years later, and it still was able to fly. It had bicycle wheels. So when you cobble all these things together, that was a product that worked. Now that was over 100 years ago, but we now once again have moved away from the reality that only big organizations can create the technologies that we need. And I think you'll see lots of examples of that in the trade show today, of really inventive, smaller organizations creating new things. And I think that has nothing but good for us. Obviously, we're talking about the whole world of mobile devices, and there's more to mobility than just the fact that it's a different type of computer. When people first saw the emergence of tablets, again, whether they're Apple or Android devices or others, I think they thought about it as a way to consume content. But one of the things we quickly realized is that mobility offered a different user experience and offered all sorts of different opportunities. So pull out one simple example. Here you've got an archaeologist on a remote dig being able to capture the critical information on an app to be able to provide that to remove the need for paper-based transcriptions. If we start to think about the use of these mobile devices in the work that we do, in the way that we can possibly allow persons with disabilities as individuals, their families, their employers, the possibilities are endless. And we are in a place for the first time to be actually able to invent those applications and ways of using things in different ways that are, I think, probably some of the more exciting things that we're seeing around technology. And again, it's an important enabler that we're now faced with. But it creates an interesting problem because most of you are saying, okay, well, how do we afford that? So let me provide a different kind of a solution. We're seeing in the United States the emergence of crowdfunding. And if you're interested in kind of tracking a fascinating place, there's this website called Kickstarter. Many of you have already bumped into it. Kickstarter allows people with interesting ideas, and often not just for technologies, but in the creative side as well, to put an idea up there. And unlike Dragon's Den or the Shark Tank, where people come and want to take your business and take all of your equity, people invest on the idea just on its merits. And it's this wonderful opportunity for small businesses or individuals with idea to be able to get a small amount of funding to test things out. So here's a simple example. This is a documentary by an individual who had some friends who were both blind and had two-sighted children. And they wanted to tell their story of what it was like to be able to raise these children. Well, think about that. You're certainly not getting calls from the major movie houses for that kind of a movie. It's a documentary, and it's probably never going to make a lot of money, so you can't even recover its cost. And what did they require? They required about $10,000. Again, no bank would even look at that. No funder would look at that because it doesn't have any, if you will, financial return on investment. So on Kickstarter, they made a request, and actually, it wasn't $10,000, it was $9,000, and they were able to generate $9,235 over a 30-day period, and were able to fund their idea. So Kickstarter, I'm just going to pull out stats here. Last year, 2012, over $275 million was invested in Kickstarter in the United States and United Kingdom. Now, before we all go running out of the room about this great idea, in Canada, it's not yet possible because we have 10 different regulators, and so there's all sorts of bureaucracy that's preventing this from happening in Canada. So what we're seeing is actually enterprising Canadians are finding ways to try and join the American Kickstarter movement. So there's lots of examples of Canadian ideas being funded, but we have one more hurdle to be able to overcome before we move on that. So Kickstarter, in my mind, creates an interesting opportunity for us to rethink the traditional ways that we're going to be able to fund the development of these technologies that offers pretty interesting new opportunities. The other piece around is social media. And even if we look at the session on WISE, the social media that they were using, obviously they've got a great website, they're using Facebook, they're putting their videos on YouTube, they've got Twitter, they're trying to really exploit social media. This is a big opportunity because the world is fundamentally changing in front of our eyes. From a technology perspective, not only is it a technology, but in my mind, it's a great way for people to be able to share their ideas and to better collaborate around building technologies, because this is a world where single people with a single idea often really benefit from being able to talk to others with other good ideas. So this picture here will probably resonate with you. This is the Arab Spring in Egypt, Tahrir Square. The first social revolution that wasn't just on TV, but was driven by social media. The opportunity for us to be able to highlight critical issues, to energize people, to mobilize people, is now possible for all of us. And the idea, we're still on an early learning curve with this, but the opportunities, in my mind, to be able to support technology development are absolutely sparkling because of what's coming with social media. The other piece I want to push you on is to think about what kind of organizational structures are required to support social media. And we're seeing a massive new interest in this world called social enterprise. Some of you may see this as just a type of not-for-profit, but there's some substantive benefits that are different here. So this is a small social enterprise that I just pulled off the web dealing with HIV and AIDS people in New York City who have housing issues. But rather than just go through the traditional approach of trying to generate donations and philanthropy to support that, they've actually created an enterprise that it generates its own revenue. So what happens is you get this new organizational model that's able to allow you to achieve financial sustainability, achieving a social purpose rather than a financial profit purpose. But by providing goods and services that generate its own revenues, it becomes a much more powerful way to sustain yourself, so you're not completely dependent on the whims of the donors process and the costs of also being able to achieve those donations and philanthropic activities. So the social enterprise piece is exploding around the world. Interesting enough, this is a best practice in my mind that came from the developing world. Fantastic things happening in India and all over the world, but the Grameen Bank was probably the first classic example of that. But we're starting now to think about how this will fit into our North American, Canadian society, and the opportunity is to think about new structures to support technology development and different ways to provide services to persons with disabilities, I think are opened up by this whole social enterprise move. So the final piece I want to talk to is the bottom one, which is the design element. And design, as I pointed out before, is much more than just aesthetic beauty. So the Van Gogh picture is one piece of that, but the more important part of this picture is that the story of Van Gogh being prepared to invent a brand new way of painting and a brand new way of representing his ideas that were completely out of sync with the dominant philosophy of art at the time is the more important piece. And so when you think about design, you're moving to a world where we're adding some different properties into what we do. And in my mind, one of the best examples in this room is to take a look at the work in the OT operation over there, who are clearly applied really, really solid design principles and trying to fully understand what users' needs are, and then to respond by developing prototypes and really tangible ideas to represent those in ways of developing new technologies. Too often we're trapped into the world that the expert knows best and we think we can come up with the right solutions. What design offers in the first place is an unbending commitment to really try and understand what users' needs are. And I didn't bring up my example, but we've got a fantastic vegetable peeler at home made by a company called OXO, which has a nice large handle and works amazingly well. Well, that vegetable peeler, which I think is one of the best kitchen products I've ever seen, came from trying to develop a response for people who had rheumatoid arthritis and had mobility problems. So the critical piece around that, I've got about 2 more slides, Sharon, so we'll pull up, is that the idea of design is going to allow us to develop better technologies that are better suited to meet the needs of all of us, including with persons with disability. So my prediction about technology, if it doesn't exist now, it will in the immediate future, because we're starting to see a passionate level of energy and engagement around what's possible and what's done. And I think we've got real opportunities coming out of this is to further encourage those or get involved ourselves into thinking about better technology that will support all of us as well as persons with disability. As you're thinking about that, I would argue that it's important to be able to manage the tension between 3 different pieces. As I've talked about before, what are the user's needs? What's the purpose of what we want? And what's the context in which we're trying to provide that? And in doing so, we focus on usability as being a critical piece. Feasibility, in other words, can we make it yet? Or are we talking about something that's so far out in the future that it's not yet viable or possible? But most importantly is sustainability, because we have to be able to develop technologies that people can afford, that we can support. And so too often we get into a trap where we develop the best solutions, but yet we can't put them in the marketplace because they cost way too much money. And that's an interesting challenge that we're seeing trying to check. So moving forward, my final thought today as a stimulation is, as I've walked around this room and saw some of the things that are happening, it seems to me that we have an interesting convergence of capacity in Alberta, and particularly in Edmonton. We have research institutions that are looking at this. We have places like the Glenrose. We have a whole array of interesting technologies and examples from local developers and inventors. And I think that we probably have an opportunity to create a cluster of interest and capacity where we actually have the potential to establish a stronger leadership role in developing new technologies to be able to support persons with disabilities. So I lay that out as an open challenge, in fact more an opportunity for you to think through as to whether that's something we want to pursue. Thanks for your time. Great. Well, thank you.
The card.
Okay.
Give you too many things to carry.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Kirby. And our next speaker, Ling Huang, is the president and CEO of Technology North Corporation, a seasoned IT professional specializing in IT strategy, security, project, and operation management. Ling is also a father with an autism child, understanding the challenge from service provider, government, and family perspective. He's leading the team committed to using their IT skill and resources to address the challenges in the human service sector. Please join me in welcoming Ling to the stage.
Just 1 second. Can you see it? Okay. Okay. Thanks very much. This is actually a wonderful presentation, and this is actually a really good conference. We started this application in 2009, 2010. This is really the first time we see a provincial-wide conference hosted by government, and we see the movement. This is very, very great. My presentation is all about enrich lives through technology and through partnership. So what I'd like to talk about is some story and where we come from, why we're doing this, and where we're going with this application. Okay? A very short story about technology now. We are Alberta-based IT companies, and we do IT consulting, manage IT, and application development. Here's our customer profile. You can see we do a lot of works with the provincial government, municipal, healthcare, and one of the customer is Excel Society. You're probably all familiar with that. We are the IT provider since 2002, and we've been working with them quite a bit doing IT work for them. So until about 2009, things are changed, and why? So basically, these two things changed in 2009, and we all remember 2008 financial crisis, and Excel Society basically come to us and said, you know, based on the model we're using, they're using for paper-based, the system is not very sustainable. And you guys are IT, you try to figure out something you can help us. And more importantly, is this little fellow. His name is Brian. He's my son. He actually has severe autism. And he was diagnosed with severe autism in 2004. He is probably, what I understand, is probably the very first benefits recipient from a FSCD program. From 2004 and to 2009, and my family spent a lot of time focused on his intervention services. And during the intervention service, I work with many service providers, with the government social workers, and this is what come to understand the challenges in these sectors. Now, this diagram shows a very common process in autism intervention service, as well as the general disability services, and also apply to K-12 school IPP program or employment program. And you can see this is a very, very common process. It starts with either a client or family or guardians, work with a funding agency and a service provider. There's a common process on annual basis. You do intake, you do assessment, you make a long-term plan, then you break down to a short-term plan, you break down to a day-to-day achievable, measurable items, and you give to the frontline staff or professionals to work with. And you collect the data, and you aggregate the data every 30 days or 90 days. Is that a process everybody use? Yes. So what's common worldwide on this, using this process? You probably all recognize this. Paper, endless amount of work, and angry stakeholders, and angry families. Like Miles talked about yesterday, from a service provider perspective, from a frontline perspective, from a client perspective, and I can say that from a family perspective. Okay? So let's look at some detailed challenges. This is a challenge from a service delivery perspective. The very first one is evidence-based results tracking and report. Now, it's very important we have evidence-based data. If we don't, everything is anecdotal, right? We have to have evidence, measurable data, and the cost to collect the data, this data, are very, very expensive. I have actually been traveled in North America, even to Asia, talk about this. And the common feedback I receive is about 25% of the total HR costs from agency perspective are spent on administrative paperwork. 25%, that's a lot, okay? And many agencies are actually operate across jurisdictions. For example, FSCD has 6 different regions in Alberta, and each region may want a different kind of report. So if you are agency operate in Alberta-wide and think about the cost you have, try to comply with the report requirement. Collaboration, and paper-based collaboration, it's very difficult. I can speak this for myself. While my child was a dual intervention, we work with a multidisciplinary team, SLP, psychologists, OTs, as well as a supervisor and the frontline staff, and the executive director of the organizations. And we just find ourselves repeating every single time, talk about same issue again and again, okay? So, great. Labor shortage, I see this lady is saying that. Labor shortage, and that's a huge problem in Alberta. It's a great problem, but it's still a problem. How much is it cost for you to replace the person and retrain that person? And we all understand this is something called just-in-time learning or just-in-time knowledge. Where are they? Well, they don't exist on the papers, or you have to carry a library with you. Okay, you carry a library with you? Of course not. So I also like to bring this from a family and a client perspective. Well, that was me in 2004. And my frustration is not able to see, knowing how my child was doing. I've been attending many conferences or case conference. The very first question I always ask is, how's my son doing? Oh, he's doing great. Oh, can you show me anything? Well, not really. Why? Wow. Now I understand why. Because it's a very expensive, and they don't have the tool to help them do that. Okay? And also this second thing is about window of opportunity. Now that can apply to family, for young child, for adult, and yes, they must talk about that. Opportunity for employment, right? And Miles talk about a lot of challenges, and many of challenges actually can be solved through our software. I'm going to explain that. Now, we also understand, I talked to a lot of families over the last 3 years. Many families want to get involved, but they don't know how and what to do. So we need to provide a tool for them to do that. The last one is my favorite, question mark. The day we received a diagnosis of my son's autism, we went home, we went to internet, we're typing autism in Google search, 2 million hits. Anything and everything is on the website, from mineral water, chocolate bars, you name it, they have it. So as a parent, what should I do? I have no idea, okay? Based on that, and based on the feedbacks we receive from our client, based on my own frustration, and through a partnership with Alberta Innovates, and through our federal government and Excel Society and the Center for Autism Service Alberta, create this partnership, we create this application called TN Active Care and the TN Active Family. TN Active Care is focused on provider space, government agency, and the provider space. TN Active Family is actually an application, a companion application, allow family member to participate with the program. Okay? So I'm going to play a very short video to show how this application it is. This is a case management tool, very flexible, customizable, allow you to transfer your form you're using within your organization and write into this application and start tracking data. Instead of a Word document, we're using a database hierarchy structure to create a care plan. So you can break them down into long-term, short-term, or to day-to-day. And once the plan is created, you can schedule the plan using Outlook-like and a scheduling system. And you can schedule the sessions with one-to-one, one-to-many, or many-to-many situations. As well, we'll create a very flexible system to manage a budget. And on a week-to-week basis, you can even say how the budget is being spent. Neither over budget or under budget is not a good thing. So we allow you to control that. At the real time, you can create progress data in many, many different forms. This is usually a monthly report. It takes 4 hours to create. Our system is one click. It's an update care plan. Once the plan is created, we deliver to a mobile device with iPhone or iPad, allow frontline staff to see what they need to do and collect the data right on the spot. No more papers. And here we show you how to collect the data. We even allow you to create the durations and everything else. So yesterday, Miles talked about timesheet. Kubi just talked about timesheet. Guess what? Our application built in with a timesheet. You don't even need to do timesheet anymore. You just need to finish your work, sign off, the timesheet is automatically filled for you. Okay? So let's look at some benefits we already achieved through our service providers and through the usage deployment of this application. The very first one is effortless data collection and reports. And using iPhone and iPad, you can collect the data while you're doing the work instead of afterwards. So error-free or less error and less effort to collect the data. Once the data is collected, you just forget about it. Okay? And this application really allowed the frontline staff and the service provider spend more time and energies and with the client instead of doing the paperwork. That's what it should be. Okay? And tracking and all the client information in a single software. So no more these repeat things and allow very comprehensive collaboration between the multidisciplinary team. Basically, it's a client-centric software. Anyone work with the client, whether it's a director, manager, multidisciplinary team, or frontline staff, or family, they can share information anytime, anywhere, securely. Okay? And we also integrate with the GPS and the video capabilities, and you should come to see a real demo of that. From a family and employee perspective, and it's being informed anywhere, anytime. We actually had a family component introducing this year. It was really a hit. We have a customer from United States, Mexico, from Canada. They just screaming want this application. This application really allowed family, all the stakeholders to manage and to hold that opportunity we all talk about, and wherever the opportunity it is. And allow family, the staff, and allow the client itself, and allow anyone involved, for example, employee, to be involved, to know what to do and how to do, and provide a very, very meaningful participation. Here's some testimonial coming from, actually provided by Sharon Ree, CEO and President of Excel Society. The first one is a talk about the return on investment. Okay? 75% reduction administrative work, which is 25% of their total budget. I calculate it's about 10% of the total budget. Think about what can you do with that. The second thing is actually very, very important. A staff told us, TI negative care showed the skills I have, and I'm not a babysitter. I'm a professional. Wow, that's very, very powerful. Think about that, right? The third statement is talk about staff morale. Now, this is actually quite important in these sectors because we are competing, this sector, we are competing with every single industry in Alberta. We want to make sure the employees feel proud and want to stay in this industry. How do we do that? Well, one of the avenues is to provide the technology, let the staff feel they are actually up to date, they're not behind. Okay? So this is not where we stop, and let's talk about where we're going with this. Our dream is not just build application from a provider and a family perspective. It's go far, far beyond. We all heard the presentation from Miles. Miles talked about a lot of issues which I already foresee my son's going to face it, right? The bubble minds, try to follow the procedure, follow the to-do things, and try to be there by 9 o'clock, but not knowing you have to be on the bus by 8:20. Well, our application can solve that issues. We can actually design a checklist, not just give to the frontline staff, but give to the client himself. So imagine Miles wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning, buy this device. Okay? Tell Miles step by step, at this time you need to comply with this step. This time you need to do this. Go to kitchen to do this. And 8:20 you need to be on the bus. 9 o'clock you need to be at work. Okay? Our software and integrate with the technology, and actually on the back there's a lot of technology we can integrate, can actually provide sensor information and provide all this information to the back end, and we can collect and do the analysis of this information to see if a person needs help or not. So what does that mean? So people like my son, and in the future, he does not need to live in the group home anymore. He can live independently, okay? But he will probably need help just in time help, instead of 7x24 help. That will allow us to reduce the cost by a huge amount of a percentage. We can calculate that, right? And also allowed all the stakeholders create a community-based service and allow family to be very, very meaningful to be involved to manage the service as well. So how do we do that? Well, Technology North or TN Active Care is not the only player. This is what we envision ourselves. We want to be the facilitator of all technology. There are many, many technology. It's actually already out there. We talk about apps. There's 700,000 apps. I can see probably 10,000 apps can integrate with us. The problem today, none of the apps talk to each other. So every single app collects its own information, put its own database. There's no collaborations, there's no correlations, there's no consolidated report. We want to change that. We want our application to create a centralized database, allow other apps to feed the data into our application, and provide the data to the professional, governments, and the decision maker with the consolidated data and at different levels for different purpose. Okay? This is really Alberta-based technology innovation and collaboration. We want to make sure this is for Alberta and make sure it's for Alberta's benefits. I want to summarize by the benefits we can create. And if you ask me the single benefits, it's a strong and engaged family for individual or for a family. And we're all in this together, so let's make it happen. Thank you very much. Any questions? We have a booth and the back there, so if you feel you need to like to know more information, feel free to come to us. And if for this on the website, you can go to www.tnactivecare.com. There you can find the information. The video is also on the website as well.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Here's a small token of our appreciation.
Thanks so much.
Great. Now, excuse me for a second. Go ahead. Maybe could Kirby and Ling have a traveling mic, and then Crystal have, do we have enough to do that? Are there any, we've got a few minutes for questions for Kirby and for Ling. Are there any questions in the room or on the webcast? Were people intrigued at the idea that you wouldn't have to do timesheets? Is it? Have we got one? Okay. Great. Question from the floor.
Yes, I think it's an excellent application. I can see that it would have lots of advantages for particularly the way we do family managed services in PDD. My concern is about cost, because while you were talking, I just did a brief cost analysis of what this would be for a family who has two parents, one client. Assume that they've got two family managed support workers and one family managed CSC, and they've got some agency involvement. To me, this looks like it would cost about $300 a month for a family. So I think it's an excellent application. I'm just concerned about the costs and how that might be adaptable somehow.
So just to answer your questions, for that family with one child, doesn't matter how many people involved, it's $30 only. For a client, I pricing this model for the best benefits for the child, for people like my son. So we don't charge how many people involved with the application. It's all about that client tracking in our software.
So just so I'm being really clear about it, it would be $30 a month for the client, regardless of how many involvements they had.
That's correct.
Oh, that's significantly different. Thank you.
That was a really good question to ask. Others in the room? The cost from the webcast was also, what is the basic cost of this program?
It's $30 per client or per client tracking this software, or the client being taken care of by the service provider. It's not how many users using this software. And it's a SaaS model. There's no need for you to buy any server or anything. It's all hosted by the cloud. Of course, you need to buy some device, there's some training cost, but it's comparatively to an enterprise application in the traditional model, this is a very, very cost saving. And we want to make sure we can put this application out for very, very easy access and a very easy deployment.
Here?
So my question is, if we were to purchase this app, are we able to modify it to suit the access needed for our clients or for the specific agency that's using it? Are we able to make modifications to suit what we need?
You probably talk about the application library, which is the items required to tracking for the particular client. The answer is 100% yes. I will encourage you actually come to our booth and we can show you how the library is being built. And our application right now is being used for autism interventions and for very intensive, like ABA-style discrete child, as well as a play-based assistance, and also adults in a recreational space, and using by transition, for example, Southern Alberta-based transition, purely for time tracking and group communications and schedulings. So based on different needs, our application can be tailored and configured for different purpose. So there's no need for us to modify anything, and you can modify the library on your own.
Here, a question? Who's got, here, the gentleman in the suit?
My question is for Dr. Wright. What's the way forward, right? Is it more on social innovation side or social entrepreneurship side? Where do you see the way forward?
I'm not sure I'd make an or. To me, it's an and. I think there's immense opportunities around the social enterprise side because it offers different ways for us to come together and collaborate that we typically haven't explored. But the social media side is equally as exciting, for sure. Social innovation, social innovation. And I see them all merged together, for sure. Yeah.
So thinking of innovation as a more general piece in which there's different facets, rather than trying to carve it out. Another question? We had one in the middle of the room there.
My question is for Ling. How do you address the privacy concerns with your application? I don't understand the cloud. So how do you protect the client information?
Okay, very good. My background is security. I'm actually CISSP, Certified Information System Security Professional. Once I was on contract with the provincial government as a security architect for provincial assistance. So our system is built by two principles, a need-to-know based and a rule-based security. Okay, so it's all really configured the way how you assigned to be who knows, who can see this application, who can see the client data, and what privilege, whether it's a read only, or read and write, or no access at all. Okay, we are actually HIA and HIPAA compliant. So if you want detailed information, please come to us, and we can explain to you how our application is being secured. Okay.
Question in the middle here.
Yeah, this question
and then
is
back over here.
Sorry, this question's for Dr. Kirby-Wright, and I was wondering what the most effective way is for professionals, for say the people in this room and that are watching, to learn about new media like Facebook for business, Twitter apps, business uses of the iPad, using YouTube, without having to beg our children to teach us how to use it.
The actual solution may be in your question that when we look at how children learn these tools, it's just by doing it. And this is a kind of world where just do it and no mistakes kind of are possible. You can't break the machines. But we need to kind of just try things and see what works and watch what other people are doing as well. I don't think a kind of formal training is as effective as really trying to think, well, how can we use this and try some things and learn from them. So learn by doing would be my takeaway. Sorry to be making it simple.
I always hate it when he gives me that answer. So up here at the front.
First of all, I'd like to say I think this is a fantastic technology and great that it's Alberta-based and developed here. So I am considering all kinds of ways that we can actually apply this technology. So in order to garner a little bit more information, can we contact you? Can we hire you? Do you advise us? I would really like to know what the process is to actually start some kind of service with you for Edmonton Fellowship of the Deafblind.
Okay. The very first thing we do is we call it client engagement. We want to make sure if we sell you this application, it's for the benefits for the client and for yourself. Okay. So the very first thing you can do is to pick up a business card, and Pam, our director of business development, it's on the back, and myself, you can pick one of our business cards, give us a call, send us an email. We'll be more than happy to do either web seminar, or we go to meetings, or we can come to visit you. We can sit down with you and see what is your required, what you need to do, and what we can do with our application. There's no cost for you at all to do that first session. And once we understand what you need to do, is we can propose to you how we're going to do that. So whether it's a strict implementation, modifications, and for something else. For example, we have one customer sign on with us from Utah, from the United States. We met with them in March. We did that whole process on the web. We show them application. They show us their form. We show them how we can cover the stuff they need to do. Within 5 weeks, they sign the application. They're starting this week. So it's a very, very quick process. Versus this is other organization. For example, we're talking to an organization called May Institute in the United States. Huge, huge organization. Well, there's some customization requirement, there's some modification for the specific for the organization needs. So yes, we have to sit down with you, understand what you need. So we can do multi-purpose, and we can separate, for example, TN application to a consulting works and to see how we fit the best. The bottom line is I want to make sure this is the benefits for you and for your client, for people like my son. Thank you.
Okay. One question here, and then I have some web-based questions.
I have a question that probably applies to both of you. I have a learning disability. I have a terrible time with technology when they say learn it by doing it, because I don't know what to do in order to learn it. So what does somebody like me do who's used to manuals and reading it and following it step by step through, and you're not used to this quick flashing things that click here, 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 and here, that my youngest grandson can do, and then he turns to me and says, "Password?" You know? I haven't got a clue. So how does somebody of my age who is used to writing books, paper, has actually seen typewriters and stuff like this, how do we do it? Because I can see its necessity. I can see the technology is required in my work and in my life and will be needed. And yet, I'm not exactly 18 to 21. So how do I do it?
I'll let Ling start. And then
I'm going to
pass
start
the mic.
and I'm going to pass to Kirby. In our application, we actually thought about that. In the last 3 years was a really great learning experience for us, working with human service sectors. I'll give you one stat you probably won't even believe. 2011, we went to a worldwide conference called ABA Conference in Denver. Before we went, we were so excited. We beefed our website. We put a tracking there. We went there. There was 4,000 people. We expect a lot of people is going to go to our website. Guess how many people come to our website? 20. So what does that mean? People in the human service sectors are probably preferred other ways of learning and contact. So within our application, we're actually using 2 different ways of communicating application information with you. The first one is a traditional manual PDF. The second way is a video. Okay? It's a video, a step-by-step video, show you how to do things. And we actually collect the feedbacks from the market, see which way we should maintain and which way we should emphasize. So, Kirby, you go ahead.
I think it's an important question. Obviously, there are paper-based manuals, books that you can buy, but for me, the other piece that's critical about this is the whole use of particularly mobile devices, simple apps, is they're designed to be easy to use. So it's as much a curiosity factor and try things, and I would also argue to sit down with someone else and jointly explore it together so you can each bounce your ideas and what you learn from each other. But one of the tests for me is if an app is well designed, its learning curve is as short as possible. And if it takes too long to learn, you're not the only one that's frustrated with that, so don't ascribe it to age or a learning disability. A well-designed app is easy to learn. And that's the test that we're still seeing. And there's 700,000 of these in the marketplace, but not all of them are great. And we're having to sort that out. And actually one of the largest challenges we're seeing, and this was an interesting piece from the WISE discussion earlier today, was that they're now trying to provide some recommendations or advice to people on the best apps to select, because we're being, quite frankly, overwhelmed with the choices. And so we need people to say, well, this one's better than that one, take a look at that. And I think that would be an important value add that the WISE people are doing, but we also need to do more of. So, but the answer to your question is yes, there are manuals and you can purchase easy to read books and things like that, but it still is a good design, well-designed app should be easy to use and intuitive, and it's a matter of trying it.
Thank you.
Well, before I finish this, I'd like to take this opportunity and acknowledge publicly for all of you, actually for the service provider as well as government agency. And through my own experience with my son, I know the intervention, the service works. And on behalf of many, many parents out there, I'd like to thank you.
I'll just finish off with a couple of questions from the webcast. One is a comment from Jan. It would be so nice not to have to write the same things 3 or 4 places all the time. And others are, again, the concern for privacy. So you answered that before. And so I'm assuming the question came in just before your answer. And the third is, how soon would it be allowed to all the agencies?
Currently, we're selling this software. It's an agency-to-agency basis, and we are in discussion with provincial government. And I don't make that decisions, so that may be sometimes. But if you like to see this, and come talk to us, and let's find a way to make it work.
Ling, one last question. What's your website? Did you have it on the slides?
Yes, it's a www.tnactivecare.com, tnactivecare.com.
And we will add that to the list of questions and answers that we'll post on the web, so you can get it back as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you. So we're about to break for lunch. Just a couple of comments before we do. One, I've learned over time that some of you are more comfortable putting down questions on the colored paper on your table. Please continue to do that. We'll answer them as we can, but if we can't get them to in the question and answer period, then we will put them in the written list of answers that we post. And from the website, please continue to, from the webcast, sorry, please continue to send in your comments in the chat boxes. It's very, very helpful for us to know where people are thinking. So one last thing, as you go for lunch, be thinking about the last day and a half. What are highlights? What are things you've learned, things you'll take away? Please continue to send us and give us a paper with that information on it as well. With that, we'll break for lunch and we'll reconvene at 1 o'clock. Thank you. Make sure you visit the website or the trade show, please. Find one you haven't seen and go to that.
We're here to introduce the MV1, the world's first factory-built wheelchair-accessible vehicle. Historically, the wheelchair accessibility market has been met by vans that were built for another purpose that were then put through extensive modifications and conversions to make them do the job. Unlike that, the MV1 was built from a blank sheet of paper to be a wheelchair accessible van. It has a full boxed frame. The body sits on the frame and the vehicle comes out of off the assembly line ready to be a wheelchair accessible van. The MV1 is a one-chair van which has the capacity to carry a driver and up to 4 additional passengers. 3 passengers can be accommodated in a rear bench seat which handles 95th percentile, 6'2", 225-pound passengers. There is an optional jump seat for a caregiver. It gets a little bit cozy with that. And the wheelchair can be placed in one of 2 positions, the shotgun position adjacent to the driver or in the second row of the vehicle. The central feature of the MV1 is the integrated access ramp. The side access ramp, and there's a manual ramp option and there's also a power ramp option. The power ramp option, which is what you're seeing today, deploys to 2 different lengths. It's controlled by a switch in this access door. The operator simply selects the length of the ramp that they want to deploy and holds the button until the ramp comes out of the vehicle, sets down on the curb, and similarly, but with the push of a button, the ramp will retract back into the vehicle. The MV1 was designed through an extensive process that took about 4 years. The input was gained from wheelchair users, commercial transportation companies, automotive experts, and one of the founding underlying principles was that the vehicle would meet the Americans with Disabilities Act regulations, which is actually quite new legislation, and the parallel Canadian legislation is called D409 from Transport Canada. The MV1 comes with a very comprehensive warranty. It's typical of most automotive products in this era. The vehicle is warranted for 36 months, 60,000 kilometers bumper to bumper, 5 years or 60 months, and 120,000 kilometers for the powertrain, 5 years, 120,000 kilometers on the ramp, and 5 years, 160,000 against corrosion and rust through. For more information on the MV1, please visit mv1ofedmonton.com and follow the links.
Personal Lifeguard is an automated check-in system to give your family, your employer peace of mind so that they know that you're safe. Personal Lifeguard could be used for just about anyone, from realtors to home care workers to your kids out in the workforce. How Personal Lifeguard works is you've got 3 setting intervals, half an hour, hour, and 2 hour. It's on a 24-hour clock. You can set your time and then it automatically pops up on your screen. So you pick a safe symbol when you register with Personal Lifeguard, and at that time you touch your symbol, that notifies the server that you're safe, and it doesn't send any alerts out to your contacts. If my daughter was on a date with the Personal Lifeguard system, it gives us a peace of mind. When her symbols pop up on whatever setting she has, a half hour, hour, or 2 hour, and she's not comfortable in the situation, she can hit a wrong symbol, which is the emergency symbols, out of the 6, and it will send emergency notification right to us immediately. By that, we know where she is because she is being GPS tracked incrementally, every snapshots of her everywhere she goes. With people that have mental or physical disabilities, having our system in their smartphone or their tablet, they can automatically check in without a home care nurse calling in to check on them or their parents or their daughter, vice versa. This is an automated system. They check in, nobody bothers them. If they don't check in, it sends an alert out after 10 minutes. Personal Lifeguard provides people a sense of independence. Personal Lifeguard is $5.95 a month for the personal plan. It's available on BlackBerry, Android, and iPhone, and it's available worldwide in every language. Personal Lifeguard Services offers our service free of charge to anybody the age 65 and over and with a disability, worldwide. For more information, visit our website at www.yourplg.com.
The Employability's Career and Employment Center, it's an innovative program that's been in the agency for approximately 18 months, close to 2 years. And it's an opportunity for anyone who happens to have a medical condition, a barrier to employment, or a disability to come on in, be able to see and view some of the resources that we happen to have. We have Alberta Works publications, we happen to have information on job search, we happen to have job leads for our employers. We also can look at doing some career planning. We happen to have just a wealth of information and resources available, and they do not need an appointment. Just come on through the door. We welcome them to be here and, see the resources, meet with an employment coach, and set a plan of action. All the services at Employabilities are at no cost. Some of our programs happen to have a tuition fee to them, but we work with Student Aid Alberta in order to be able to find a grant for that. Here at Employabilities, we have a variety of assistive technologies. We have everything from adjustable tables that can be raised and lowered for people who are using wheelchairs or mobility, scooters for mobility. We happen to have the print magnifier for individuals who happen to have visual impairments. We happen to have TTY accessibility for individuals who are deaf and hard of hearing. We happen to have the Interpret-type system, which is a system that people can communicate with each other very quickly. It's portable, it's really accessible and easy for individuals to use quite quickly. We happen to have single-handed keyboards, big keys keyboards for people with visual impairments. We have a variety of software for individuals with learning disabilities. There's just a vast array of the types of technologies we have available, and it's all done more on an individual basis rather than, just having them available for groups, but individuals come on in and we'll find the technology that happens to suit them. Here at the Career and Employment Center, we're based in Edmonton, and it's Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. But we also have locations up in Cold Lake, Bonnyville, Lac-La-Biche, St. Paul, Vegreville, Fort Saskatchewan. Those are home-based offices, and we work with Alberta Works quite closely to be able to provide the services for individuals there. You can find us in a number of ways. We do happen to have our website, which is www.employabilities.ab.ca. We can also we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. There's ways of individuals to be able to connect with us.
The goal of disability-related employment supports, DRES, is actually to increase the awareness of Albertans for persons with disabilities to get hired in the workplace by helping Albertans and employers be able to accommodate individuals in their workplace and increase employment retention. I'm here to talk about Alberta Works and disability-related employment supports. Disability-related employment supports are a tool and a service that is provided within Alberta Works that provides supports and services to Albertans with disabilities. Some of the supports and services that we provide are things like tutors for individuals accessing different training programs. We may provide funding for computer software, for voice to text speech, for instance. Another tool might be even a vehicle accommodation so an individual can get to and from work. And something more recently that we have noticed that's really helping individuals retain employment is job coaching services and assessment. And that is something that falls within Alberta Works. And individuals wanting to access any of these programs or learn more about it can go onto our website, can go onto the ALIS website, alis.gov.ab.ca, or they can pop into one of our career Alberta Work Centres. And we have 4 Alberta Work Centres in the Edmonton area, and they're all over the province. Okay, we've got some great short videos on the ALIS website that feature different topics of career planning. Everything from a person job searching, accessing our career Alberta Work Centres, and as well things about job loss, diversity, how does a person with a disability access employment, how do employers help retain employees. It's quite diverse, the number of videos we have and the number of publications we have also at our sites and online. Information about DRES is available on the Government of Alberta website. It's available at the ALIS website, and you'll also find it in information on our publications. A lot of different areas will focus back to disability-related employment supports.
Do you have questions about planning your career? Need advice on education options? Looking for resume help? The Career Information Hotline is your place for expert answers to all these questions and much more. It's a free service where career advisors can be contacted online or by phone for help on a variety of career, education, and employment topics. For example, if you need advice on career planning, career advisors can guide you towards determining your interests and how to get the planning process started. You'll learn about various occupations and be directed to information about working conditions, skills and training requirements, and even salary ranges. If you want to know more about your education options, career advisors can help you with information on full or part-time post-secondary education and apprenticeship. They can also let you know about funding options like scholarships, loans, and employment insurance. When it comes to job search skills, the hotline is a good source for tips on writing a resume, putting together cover letters and references, as well as researching and preparing for interviews. To ask a question online, use the e-question submission page. Simply fill out the online form with your contact information and question. Click on Submit, and you're done. It's that easy. A career advisor will review your question and send you an expert answer within 3 business days. If you'd like to speak with a career advisor, you can also phone the Career Information Hotline toll-free at 1-800-661-3753 or locally in Edmonton at 780-422-4266. Ever wanted to have your resume professionally reviewed? Take advantage of the hotline's e-resume review service. It's a free service for Albertans and those looking to work in Alberta. Fill out a quick and easy form, attach your resume, click submit, and your resume will be reviewed by an expert. Career advisors will respond within 3 to 5 business days and provide you with professional feedback on your resume. As you can see, Alice's Career Information Hotline is a powerful resource. Career advisors are just a click or phone call away from offering you help with every step of your career planning, educational, and employment process. Why not contact them today?
If you've entered the world of work, you'll find the Workplace Resources section on Alice to be informative and useful. Whether you're wondering about rights as a worker or how to manage workplace issues, you'll find links, tips, and publications here. Pages include Rights and Responsibilities, Enhancing the Workforce, and Managing Work Relationships. Every worker has both rights and responsibilities on the job. Many of the rules that must be followed in Alberta, such as minimum wage or the length of a workday, are set out in legislation. The Rights and Responsibilities section directs you to resources on labor laws and human rights and provides other practical directions such as how to apply for employment insurance online. Did you know that you can refuse to do dangerous work? This section also links you to information about the laws, programs, and services that keep your workplace safe. Through the Enhancing the Workforce page, you can learn about work search and which jobs are in demand. You can access information on what wages are being paid using the labor market information links, strategies for staff development, and tips on how to balance life and work. The Managing Work Relationships section is all about human resources. In other words, how to make the most of your work life. Useful links cover topics like skills development, disability on the job, and how to succeed at work by being a valued employee. Succeeding at work also means nurturing your life outside the workplace. You can find tips on achieving a healthy work-life balance in the Managing Work Relationships section as well. One thing is certain, our workplaces are always evolving. Whether you're on your first day of the job or in your 10th year as senior manager, you'll benefit from the comprehensive links and publications in the Workplace Resources section of Alice.
Hi, I'm Rachel with Alice, the Alberta Learning Information Service. Are you wondering how to get work experience? Experience is important because experience basically shows that you've taken the time to learn a particular skill or learn something related to that skill and that you have a genuine interest in this job. You can get experience through volunteering, job shadowing, on-the-job training, and apprenticeships. Get out and meet people in the industry, talk to them about opportunities, look at what your interests are and what you're capable of doing, look at your skills, and take a look at what you enjoy doing. By volunteering, it shows that you contribute to your community willingly and that you've taken that step to engage yourself in the task or in the job. Find out more about the on-the-job training opportunities in your community. Take a look around and see what's available. On-the-job training can be helpful for you because you can train in the actual environment that you would be working in. You can see the details and the tasks that are included in that job and whether or not you like those things. Job shadowing is when you follow someone around at work and learn their skills and duties throughout the day. You can do this for a certain period of time and you gain skills through doing this. An apprenticeship is when you're combining classroom work with on-the-job training. Apprenticeship helps you gain experience because you're getting practical work with a theory-based knowledge as well. The final way that you can gain work experience is let everyone know that you're looking for work and let them know what type of work you're looking for. Let them know what skills you already have and what you're willing to do. By doing this, you're putting the word out and you're spreading a rumor about yourself, a positive rumor about you and your career. Volunteering, job shadowing, and apprenticing are great ways to gain experience and make you more valuable to potential employers. For more information, visit the ALICE website at alice.alberta.ca and make the most of your future.
Hi, I'm Stacy with ALICE, the Alberta Learning Information Service. Are you wondering what job opportunities are available to someone with a disability? Most employers are receptive to job seekers who have the skills that they need. Exactly the same opportunities exist for people with disabilities as for those without. Finding work opportunities starts with knowing your skills and strengths so you can market them effectively. Be specific about your skills. For example, if you say you're computer literate, give examples about computer programs that you've used. Marketing yourself is often easier when you target employers who reflect your values, apply for positions that match your skills and experience, and recognize that employers will need to train you for this specific job as they would need to train anyone for that particular position. Let people know what you're capable of and have them help you by spreading the word. Targeting employers who have experience with a diverse workforce would be a great place to start. Employers who have already hired someone with a disability are often open to doing so again. Employers have become more aware of the benefits of hiring people on the basis of their abilities and not letting myths about disabilities cloud their decision-making process. Employers realize that people with disabilities often have lots of experience in solving challenges on a daily basis. This resilience can be a valuable resource to employers, coworkers, and customers. Both the federal and provincial governments offer support for job seekers with disabilities, as well as employers